Hello, people.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, we have just a lot of cards to talk about. Lepton, you were correct. Gaming. I agree with TGA. Also, gaming. All right. What is the first card on our list?
I mean, I made the list, so it's probably a priest card.
It is not. I reorganized it. I put all the colossals together up front.
Yeah. So I'm sending that to you now before I forget about it at all, because that is very important that you enjoy that game.
It's very light.
Why I had echo, and then I remembered I needed to mute Twitch. Oops.
Yeah. Oh, is there a tweet? Should I be retweeting something?
I did tweet. Didn't make a tweet.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to take the fun background art they gave me and make an announcement. I mean, I'm gonna say it on the show.
Yeah, it's in the news. It's already in the notes.
I put it in the news in the show notes.
Oh,
I am on top of things.
Also, Wicked, thank you for just like taking care of the show notes.
It's the best, right? Oh man,
it's
like hiring a full-time masseuse and just like I just come in on Thursday and there's so much less stress. Like, this is nice. Tito, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Really appreciate it.
I mean, I figured, given the week I've had, I wanted to make anybody else's life easier because I've already taken on like everything this week. So
we would always 20 minutes before the show.
I get started an hour before.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, it's going to be there like that morning.
Yeah.
Because I mean, actually, I didn't have that much time because I had a meeting that started at 7:30 this morning. But yeah, that's been every day this week, basically.
International client.
Yeah, we've got an office in Hong Kong for this this project I'm on. So
that is a very difficult time zone. Oh, it's 12 hours.
Yeah.
So 7:30.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we're both equally inconvenienced, but that's like long before I take my ADHD meds. Yeah. And I just barely caught myself from saying something that I probably shouldn't have said while I was sharing my screen. Because I had not taken my ADHD meds yet. So, yeah.
I think when Hatton and I are up at 7:30, it's not
because you didn't go to bed.
Yeah.
There are occasional days where I have to be up at that time, and it is usually a miserable experience. But
yes. I mean, similarly, like when you're up at 2, it's because you want to. And when I'm up at 2, it's because work called me on Tuesday night and told me that our entire system crapped the bed. So
it's very different. Though I'm not gonna say want to. Like I enjoy being awake at that time, but I usually shouldn't be. But
it's something. It's sort of a choice. You may not see it as a choice at the time, but it's something you could resolve on your own if you would like to. Probably.
Beanie say? The Beanie says the Mythic Society.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna start the. I guess we can just do the show. The thing that we do.
I mean,
do that show.
Is that why we're here?
I suppose.
So. I think it is. All right. Yep. This is the correct episode. Yeah. It's the date. Okay. Let's do the show.
We could do a show. That sounds like a good idea. I mean, we're here. We might as well.
I'm gonna start by recording the show. Krabatoa, that sounds.
That's a good idea.
I agree with you that that's nice, but I don't think that should be the default. It sounds like that's more the default for you than it should be. Why is my mic so quiet?
Well, I pressed the button to tell me if I should unpress it.
No, you're good. I'm gonna move closer and why my output is so quiet here, but
fine. I'll just cut it anyway.
I just know that I'm going to turn it up, and then it's going to be too loud, and I'm going to clip. Okay. That should work. It's fine. Yeah, okay. It's loud enough. All right. Clap time. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend.
Hello and welcome to episode 336 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, March 24th in the evening. From Gadgetan, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Nomergon, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Oh.
And from Northern Massachusetts, we've got Wicked Good, a very sleepy Wicked Good.
Hi. Yes, I am very sleepy.
Yes, but you know what'll wake you up? Some new cards.
Priest
We'll
cards? Priest cards will wake, I always get up for priest cards.
There are priest cards, and there are some spicy priest cards already. And we are informed that there are more good priest cards coming. So we'll talk about that after a somewhat brief news and tournament section. But we want to take this time to thank our patrons.
Half an hour is...
It's briefish. Briefish. We want to take the time to thank our patrons. Thank you so much for your support of the show. And also everyone that leaves us a review. Really appreciate you. Helps other people find the show and totally free. All right. Life and Ladder. Steve, why are you tired?
I've worked a lot of hours this week. And I've had meetings starting at 7:30 most days, been going till 6 most days. And then got called at 2 o'clock in the morning the other day and that's always a fun call. And turns out that the application that I manage crapped the bed. So got to start that and start my day with that, and then, working all through the day and still having all the meetings starting at 7:30 and ending at 6. So I'm very tired. And I am basically just looking forward to getting to the weekend and not having meetings and getting Tiny Tina's Wonderland tomorrow and playing that with 2 of the girls. Because I bought 2 very pretty PlayStation 5 controllers in blue and red. And we are looking forward to stab-o-mancing things for the weekend. So that'll be a lot of fun. But in terms of Hearthstone, so I decided Friday night I was going to try an Okani deck because I like countering things. And so Superior David had a buff paladin with Okani in it, which is very good. I had like a 68% win rate over the course of the stream. And very first game, countered a Kazakhstan. And that was enough. Like that was worth the price of admission. And what was great about it is that they didn't even think about it. They just windmill slammed the Kazakhstan. And it was just sitting right there. And then it just went poof, and they just kind of looked around for, you have that kind of 15-second pause where they're like, well, where are my cards? And then they looked down and saw that it was there. So I did get a second one actually later in the stream, but that was a little bit more like they had nothing left and there was no way they were getting around it. But yeah, the buff paladin is very good. I tried some Nazoth. No, that was earlier. I was trying Rally Priest later in the week, and that did not go quite as well. I think I got a little bit overconfident from seeing people playing it well in the Masters Tour, and I need to remind myself I am not Gabby, and that lesson was beaten into my head repeatedly over the course of that session because I just got wiped out, including a shaman who was just hard running devolving missiles for reasons, which made me very unhappy. So I'm just gonna have to wait until rotation to go back to priest, I think. Despite all these new shinies that I keep seeing. But I think I'm just gonna chill, and I'm probably done with standard for the month. I've been playing a little bit of classic because Chwal said, well, why aren't you playing classic? And I said, well, why am I not playing classic? So I've got like a 5x multiplier in classic too, which I don't know how that happened because I haven't played it in a year, but I'll take it. So yeah, I'm very tired, and but I am rejuvenated by card reveals, and that's what's been keeping me going this week.
Yes, and there are a lot of cool new priest cards that are coming. Some that I want to play with. I said it. And yeah, Okani is definitely the most impactful ladder pre-release card since Vargoth or Kael'thas, I think, if not more so. I just looked at the VS report because I updated the deck list for the report this week. 8 of our 10 classes have Okani in them. So, it's a lot. It's not in any Druid decks that we have, and not in any Warrior decks that we have. It's in a lot of the other ones. Really, really strong and aggressive decks. If you want to play it in Priest, you play it in Shadow Priest. It's super good in Shadow Priest. Really good in Face Hunter, really good in Aggro DH, really good in Handlock, really good in all the Paladin decks. Just, kind of everywhere. So, cool card. I like it.
Yeah.
Edelweiss, how you been doing?
Oh gosh. So this is the first time I have spent a significant period of time in my house, just me. Because my wife is away at a Reconstructionist Jewish conference thing. And my friends and landlords are on vacation. So it's just me and the 2 cats, their cat and my cat. And I kind of just have lost time. I've sort of functioned as an agoraphobic person. I went outside to take out the trash and recycling. But yeah, it is sort of like I think about the date and then realize 2 days have passed, and when did that happen? And what time is it? I should probably eat something, whatever meal it should be. I don't know. Yeah, but I have been sort of thematically preparing for the new expansion, because Pillars of Eternity 2 is a very ocean-based or naval-based game. So I'm getting in that pirate mood, sailing around, attacking other ships and stuff. It's been a good time.
That does sound fun. And well, except for the forgetting to eat or what day it is part. Yeah. I bought this.
I figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
Will you?
I just know when I have work, right? Because my scheduling thing reminds me when I have work.
You could set alarms on your phone for, eat, drink a glass of water, those types of things too. It's not, I'm not saying you necessarily need to, but if you felt like you wanted to keep track of when you should do those things. Speaking as someone who often forgets to eat because of ADHD meds.
Yeah, I actually have been pretty good about water now that I just try and keep my water bottle full and in my desk. But yeah, everything else, it's just sort of.
Yeah. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on remembering to eat. In fact, very much not that. But I bought this little thing. It's called a time timer. People that are neurotypical listening to this, you may be confused as to what our lives look like. It is a 60-minute timer where you turn the middle knob. It's like a kitchen timer, except the part that you set is red, and the part that you don't is just a regular clock, and then when it runs out, it beeps. So when I'm playing games and I need to keep track of how long an hour is, then I set that to 1 hour, and then when the red is gone, then so is my game time. And so, if you need to remember how often you set that every hour, and then when it goes off 3 times, you're like, hey, it's probably about that time. I don't know. So, I don't know. Just an idea. But I understand that. Still glad you're getting some game time under the sea. And I'm getting some game time too, and also losing some track of time. So I don't think I'm going to do my weeklies this week. I have like 10,000 gold in the bank. And there's just not a lot about any of the constructed formats that appeal to me right now. Like, maybe I'll do the Leroy event, but I'm still really enjoying Elden Ring, except for the discourse. But I'm still really enjoying the game and watching my wife play or playing myself. This is the first game we've, like, quote-unquote co-opted since Hollow Knight, which was one of the first games we played in our relationship together, where when one of us is playing, if the other one is not busy, we'll sit and watch and talk about it. And she's a lifetime Souls fan, and this is the first FromSoft game I've actually enjoyed, so that is definitely taking the priority in my gaming time right now. And I realized whenever I was playing Hearthstone, like, I'm only doing this because I'm on mobile, or I feel some sense of obligation. The advice I've given so many times is, like, if it's not pulling to you, then don't play it. It's not really pulling to me right now. Now, the part that is pulling to me is talking about all the new cards and looking at the new cards. So I'm playing the Twitter format and looking at the new cards when they're out, but also just using this time to get a little bit more distance from social media and from Discord. Still checking in pretty regularly, probably more than most people do, but less than I have at my peak, and just moderating my engagement there. And I'm not going to say the amount of time I've played Elden Ring is healthy, but I'm going to say the other stuff might be theoretically healthy. So, working on that. And I have enough gold, and I have enough bundles or whatever to have every card in the new set anyway, so I don't feel a strong need to just make the rewards track higher. So, I've done coachings, but haven't logged in and played any standard in a couple weeks now. So, it's kind of where I'm at. And I'm very, very excited for the rotation. I'm going to try and take that day off if I can, because not the rotation day, not the 12th. Always take off the next day, 13th.
Yeah.
Always take off the next day. Because if you take off the day of, first, your server's going to be sketchy. Just play that night. 9, 10 o'clock that night, or Steven, I know you and Maureen do the pack openings at like 6 or 7. Those are awesome streams, really fun. That's the perfect time to start getting into it. You have a couple deck lists to pull from if you want to. You've seen some of the crazy ideas, but also you're not at the mercy of any server issues or bugs. And then you get to stay up all night and play, and then take the next day and play, and then you've gotten a lot of Hearthstone time in after the initial jitters are out. That's always what I try and do, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And all the new cards that we have to talk about, I'm going to talk about them.
I think the order will be, I will start, then ship it to Wicked Good, then Wicked Good will ship it to you.
Yeah,
That
we're
is
going to have
typically
a
how
long
it
day of
goes.
streams for the first time, because, like, that's just how our streams have kind of gone anyway. But now that I'm officially part of the show, we could just kind of pass the baton across for the whole day. So one of us will be streaming like most of that day of the release.
Yep. I'll be starting at 10 Eastern, so we can just work backwards from that.
Yep.
So we'll figure it out. And that's, what day is it now? We've got 3 weeks. 3 weeks-ish. Just under 3 weeks. 2 weeks and 5 days. Pretty exciting. So, let's get to the new cards as quickly as we can. We'll start with the news.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
It's really low on my end. I'm going to fix that later. All right. So, news. We had I don't know if this is a hot fix. It kind of is. There was this, it's kind of a hot fix, but there was a download, a very small download for it, but it didn't brick the connection between mobile and desktop. It was not a major version, so you could still play against people in the same server. So, I don't know. We had a patch. It was pretty quick. Wednesday the 23rd. Patch included, most significantly, removal of friend of a friend from the pool. So remember, this time last week, last Thursday was the day that friend of a friend came out. We were already seeing some concerns. Those concerns escalated significantly over the weekend, with some pretty absurd Twitch clips out there of golden brands discovering 9 minions effectively. Because you would discover 3 times off friend of a friend. If you got the Finley one, you got 3. If you got Ticketus, you got 3 prizes. It was super high APM, super powerful, completely format warping. Even though it was also extremely fun. It was very challenging to play optimally, but even if you didn't, it didn't care. It still loved you anyways and won you the game. Even if you ended the turn with 10 gold and a full hand. So, it was removed 6 days after its release. It was announced on Monday, and then removed right after. This is the fastest BG's nerf ever. This is BG's Day 1 Demon Hunter equivalent. It's about as fast as gone. And we got a developer comment that I think we should talk about. Friend of a friend led to drastic power spikes when combined with Bran, and drove play patterns requiring an extremely high number of actions per turn. While we think there is room in the game for these types of strategies, in this case it proved too pervasive in game warping for the overall health of the game. We know that some players have really enjoyed Friend of a Friend. Looking forward, we think it's important to continue to push the boundaries of the game and explore what we can bring into it, but we also think it's important to try to respond quickly when we push too far. Keep an eye out for exciting updates as we continue to explore and fine-tune BGs to make it the best game mode it can be.
Did you watch
So
any
is
of this gameplay?
It was insane! It was so good!
Is this basically like 5/5 corridor creeper for Battlegrounds? Is that where we are with this? What would you compare this to in terms of like broken day one state constructed cards?
I think it's got to be somewhere between Corridor Creeper and Demon Hunter, because on the one hand, if you're my MMR, like, yeah, it was a good card, you picked it, but it wasn't like a strategy. But at the top, it was the plan. Was you get Friend of a Friend, you get Bran, you start getting ridiculous buddies like the Ticketus buddy or the Phelan buddy, you know, you just print money and keep getting, you know, triples and more Friend of a Friends. It went infinite, and your board would be based on prizes, right? Just a bunch of enormous Divine Shield Wind Fury minions, maybe with poisonous, but it didn't matter because they were massive. I mean, it was silly.
So, I was going to come up with an answer, but I'm not going to do better than Geopass in chat. Kazakhstan, but you have to drag every locus separately. I think that is a very good answer. Well done, Geopass. I don't think I'm going to come up with something better than that. And yeah, it's the Corridor Creeper analogy. Like, this is something that was clearly overpowered in neutral that warped the format in a way. Honestly, Kazakhstan's not that far off, right? Because everyone has a way to build around it, and it made the things that built around it so much stronger. So I can kind of see that comparison. Either way, the pace at which they moved was somewhere between Day 1 Demon Hunter and, like, DoD Faceless Corruptor speed, somewhere in that ballpark. Just because it wasn't, well, server hotfix it now so it looks weird, and then come back to this later, because they also did some other changes during this patch. They moved a lot of heroes up and down armor, because some were clearly unbalanced. They brought armor back. The big advantage of armor for them is that it's a balance knob they can tune quickly server side, and that's exactly what they did. And they changed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 12, 15... They changed somewhere around 30 heroes. Around 30. Also, something that I found very funny is Arana Starseeker had the most armor and moved to the least, and Elise Starseeker had the least armor and moved almost to the top. I wonder if they got the Starseekers wrong. They picked the wrong sisters. They just kind of
I mean, we had Whelpbonker tags the Whelp, so anything's possible.
Yeah. But either way, I don't know how much we can say this is because of Lobby Legends. At least some, right? Like, at least some, they couldn't have Friend of a Friend on broadcast. But also, this just is the kind of pace and engagement from the developer team that I want to see as a player, even as someone that doesn't play a lot of BGs. And I'm pretty impressed that they recognized it and moved this fast. Because this is from a community that just had their game turned into a very unpleasant tavern brawl for months with Diablo. And this time, the clear power spike outlier was added. Now, it's an easy fix. I talked about this on Angry Chicken. They were able to make this fix this fast because it was one neutral minion that they just said this doesn't show up anymore. They haven't been able to, or have chosen not to, change how the buddy mechanic works, except for a couple tweaks here and there, and balancing specific buddies, because it's a much larger more involved change, so they couldn't always do this if they make a larger change that breaks things. But in this particular case, they were able to move fast. They chose to do so. They communicated why. They're pushing the envelope, and they pulled it back. Pretty happy about this pace and this kind of change. And I hope that they continue to take risks and continue to react quickly if they backfire in the future.
Yeah. The reason I was asking if this is Corridor Creeper, because we were discussing this in the Discord today, and I was thinking back to when they hired Chalky on the final design team for Standard, because he was generally the one who would find those things and break them before they just hired him onto the final design team. And I wonder if we're kind of at the point, we keep talking about like the parallel, maturity of BGs versus Standard. I wonder if where they're at the point where they need to start hiring like pro players to, get onto the final design team and try to break these things a little bit more. I know they're playtesting, right? Like obviously they're doing that, but it seems like something like this is something that you get a pro player in there and give them a handful of games. Like it's not going to take a lot of time for them to say, hey, this is busted. Maybe we ought to dial that down a little bit.
Yeah, it's and Niha in the Coin Casino Discord, he's a really, really high level player. Made the comment of, do you really think they need high MMR players to play a new Battlecry with Bran and find that you win a lot when you do that?
Which is also a fair response, yes.
Yeah, but
right.
But Ixar has come out and talked about how he was the one that tested Corridor Creeper and was told it was probably busted, and he said, I will ship it anyways, and shouldn't have done that. And he's been very forthcoming about that. And I am sure that they will be pretty clear on this one as well, that they made a mistake. And I don't think you can get a better admission than a 6-day nerf. And Mad at Arms is probably right that Lobby Legends is just a job application, but also in the past 2 weeks, they posted yet another BG's designer position. It's open now, like right this very moment. So that is relatively recent. It looks like they're expanding that team pretty aggressively because they just hired a couple recently. And I would expect that we will see more of that. Plus, Lobby Legends is coming. I think that's going to be pretty cool and get more people involved in BG's. There are already a lot of people that were competing, but now there's something for it. Also, maybe we'll get some Storybook Brawl players back. Who knows?
Oh, gosh. We're not getting into that, are we?
No, we're not. No, that topic would not be very fungible to discuss.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. But I mean, it is good that they're thinking about this with the Lobby Legends coming up, right? Like, if Lobby Legends was just friend of a friend, wrecking every game, that would be a pretty bad first impression for something like that. So I'm glad that they are, being very proactive and recognizing what they need to do and making sure that initial Lobby Legends is at least, a better representation of high level play than what it would have been otherwise.
Yep. In addition, there were also some bug fixes that they rolled out with this patch. So they fixed some mercenaries bugs. There was a blank pop-up, a placeholder pop-up when you finished Book of Mercenaries Dawngrasp, and if you had finished all the Book of Mercenaries, the rewards, it was a placeholder image, so they will run a script later to grant people the rewards if you've already finished it, but they just turned off the blank pop-up, so it looks weird. There's also a specific known issue I want to point out. For some players, the Tavern Brawl chalkboard is blank. There's no text there. And I was never sure what it was. We had some people in the Quincy Discord that talked about this. And I was like, well, it's never been a problem for me. So they figured it out. The solution to this problem has been entered for an upcoming patch. In the meantime, the workaround, if you're using the English UK setting, switch to the English US setting, and that will solve the problem. For some reason, it's UK English that was causing the issue. And they have this last sentence on there that I have to read. We apologize with an S if this behavior with the U scandalizes with an S our neighbors with a U from across the pond. So whoever wrote this had a good time with the UK US English thing. I'm not going to say this was deck tech, but I'm gonna say it sounds like something Deck Tech would do.
It sounds very, very Deck Tech-esque, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I enjoyed that. And so, Tavern Brawl players, you now have a workaround, or you can just leave it blank for the queen. So, finally, a couple other notes. Theory crafting streams were announced. Hey Steve, do you know anyone that's on the theory crafting streams that's in this call? Because it's not you and it's not me.
Well, there's only one person left who's on this call, so.
Edelweiss, do you know anyone that's on the stream?
Could stand up and identify themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where Weiss is right now. No, it's
Cat stream? Cat stream?
Weiss will be there with me for sure. But yeah, I know I'm super excited. It's gonna be, like usual, gotta have at least 10 cards from new set. And I think particularly with core, this is just gonna be super, super fun. I love getting a first shot at things, and this is gonna be such a shakeup that like no one's gonna know what the heck they're doing. Also, calling it now, shielded mini bot in core, maybe for mech paladin. We'll see.
I am still nervous about proactive early divine shields. I mean, I guess we had murder, but there were some mini bot openings that felt pretty unpleasant to deal with. Maybe it's different in the Rush universe, but they could do it.
I mean, we've had Righteous Defender for a year and it's been fine.
That is half the size of mini bot, but yes.
Yeah, but it has taunt.
It does.
So I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I'm on the shielded mini bot train. I am definitely on the Goblin Blast Mage train after seeing some of the mage cards that we saw after last week. I'm pretty confident we're going to see Goblin Blast Mage because that card is probably fair. It was actually probably fair when it was printed, honestly, because it kind of fell out of the list for a while. But I think that card is probably fair enough to come back.
I don't even know if that card's good enough anymore, so I hope they include it.
It probably isn't, but it would be fun. I would enjoy playing with it for like a day before I got tired of losing with it.
We'll see. They're definitely pushing mechs. It's going to depend on how many are in between core and Ashara. I forget the name of this set all the time.
Voyage.
Sunken City.
Sunken City, yeah. SS.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh god, you don't think they're gonna bring magnetic mechs back, do you?
No,
There's no
no,
way.
Absolutely not.
No, that would be a disaster. Like, let's not do that. I mean, it would either be a disaster or it would be completely a waste of a card, one or the other.
But I could totally
do they could do like Bronze Guardian or whatever. Like it's a magnetizer 1/5 taunt, whatever, but not Zilly-X and not Snip Snap, and those are the ones that matter.
Or the poison one in Hunter would be pretty bad too.
Venomize.
I guess there aren't really any Hunter mechs, but yeah.
I think it's weird to bring back sort of set mechanics like that in core. I think it's much more likely that we see shielded mini bot Snow Chugger, right, as a building blocks for those kind of aggressive mech decks.
Yeah. Snow Chugger also is a lot worse than it used to be, but I kind of hope they don't because chain freezes aren't fun.
But freezing face, being able to freeze face is a thing that you kind of need to be able to do occasionally in more than one class.
There are ways to do that without a snowball 2-drop.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell, right? Because there are absolutely cards that were crazy back in the day that would be fine now, and there are absolutely cards that were crazy back in the day that would be unacceptable now. Loatheb is not coming back. Make peace with it. It's not good for the game. You don't want it, I promise. So,
and I've seen people asking for Zephrys to come back, and I don't think Celestalon wants to sign up for another year of people tweeting at him every time that Zephrys doesn't give them what they want. Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
They wouldn't bring back Zephyr specifically. They would make a new Zephyr's equivalent because he pulls from Classic and Basic, and that doesn't exist anymore. And so they would not recode it to work with this specific implementation of Core, I don't think. But also, I don't think they would do it at all. I don't think it's a thing that they would do. There's just... It's so hard to think of relevant scenarios these days, too, and there's so many more relevant core cards than there were classic cards. There were some classic cards they probably didn't even bother making situations for, because when are you going to need most of the cards in that set.
Also, could you imagine being a new player coming in and getting Zephyrus and then trying to figure out which of these cards you've never played with, because you would have to craft them out of the legacy set you would want to get out of this card? Like, I can't even. It just, yeah. I there's so many reasons not to, and also just please leave him alone. Like, he had his time. We had our fun. Go play Wild if you want to do it. There are plenty of Highlander decks you could do. Please don't bring it back to Standard.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see it. But there are also a lot of other players that are doing theory crafting. A great specific call out here: Super Blind Man, Brandon Cole is his name. He made some headlines this past calendar year when he was finally able, with an accessibility mod, to play Hearthstone. Streamed it, had a great time, was really awesome to watch. He got an invite to the theory crafting stream, so I think that's really great.
Yeah.
Alkali had a long thread on what the job meant to her. She was featured in Women's History Month. Had a great story and just talked about how she's working towards inclusivity. And when we think of inclusivity, of course, we think about the class people that are often discriminated against, women, people of color, etc. But also about how non-English speakers often get the short end of the stick, because sometimes devs will just tweet something out in English as a news item, and then if you have to have that translated. Think about every time in the middle of the night here, we get a card revealed in a foreign language, and we have to wait for someone on Reddit to translate it. What if that was everything? So trying to figure out time zones for coordination and just ways to include people from non-English speaking communities is a big deal. And also players who play different formats. So there are a lot of Wild players who got theory crafting invites this time, and I think that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that you can offer to that community at this point, I mean, that's an olive branch, right? So
yeah. And Matt London had also tweeted a little while ago, Wild players, what would be on your wish list? So I wonder what he's working on as the narrative designer. That's interesting to think about. Yeah. So really like that. Congratulations, Edel. And then the last news item that we had was there was this survey on mass pack openings that went out to a few people. It asked, what is the greatest number of unopened Hearthstone packs you've had at one time? What are some of the reasons why you have so many? If it allowed you to open 20 packs at once and showed a summary, what would matter to you to see in the summary screen? What if it supported mercenaries? What would you want to see in that summary? They're really exploring this space. So when you ask these kind of questions, part of it is evaluating, is this worth the dev cost? But also part of it is evaluating, how would we do this? That means it's probably pretty far down the line. And that's a good sign for people that are hoping for a spacebar reprieve.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the kind of thing where it seems really simple, right? Like, oh yeah, just give me a button and open them all. But then there's all these things that you have to start thinking about once you do that. Well, like a screen, like, how do you know what you opened? If you're doing that, like, do you want it to stop on a legendary? Do you want it to keep going? Do you want to, you don't necessarily know what you got. You're not going to be able to see that if you press them all at once, because there's no screen for it. So like, that's the kind of thing that it's something that seems very simple in development, that then there's all of these like follow-on things that you need to consider once you start doing that. It's not as, I mean, even like when we got the 18 deck slots, right? And we were like, well, what's the big deal? Just add more deck slots. Well, do you have it scroll? Do you have another page? Do you, the solution they came up with was pretty simple, that, you just scroll down. But that took a lot of testing to figure out what was going to be the most intuitive way to do it. And I'm sure that this means that they've tried a couple things and they don't necessarily know which is better. And they don't want to just, the worst thing that they could do is put something out there and then have it not be what people want, right? Especially something that people have been asking for that long. So it's good that they're kind of being measured with this.
This is the exact reason why they didn't release the version of tournament mode that they had, because it was inadequate and also misaligned with what general expectation, or at least global expectation, was so fragmented that they weren't going to make anyone happy. So yeah, I'm glad that they are asking these questions. I was going to say something, I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, the thing you mentioned about the deck slots, I saw this very funny post on our Hearthstone. It's not news, but I'm going to talk about it anyways. There was a post from a user who bravely decided not to delete this post because it was funny. Made a post saying, what is the best platform to emulate Hearthstone on Windows? Because they were thinking of Hearthstone as a mobile game. They said, how can I best emulate Android Hearthstone on Windows? Those of you listening to the show may be aware that the game is on Windows. You can just install it. The user updated the post and edited and said, I might be an idiot. It was very funny. I'm glad they kept it up. We have all had brain farts like that. However, the top reply, the most upvoted in response to this was, Blizzard, please don't take away my deck slots. And I thought that was very funny. Because, there's always been the meme about too confused. And I don't think they're going to take it away, but I smirked. I chuckled. All right, that's all the news. Go ahead.
I think most of the quality of life things that we are looking for in Hearthstone for the next while are just going to be a ton of UI problems.
Yeah.
Yep. They're hiring multiple UI employees.
Yeah. And it's hard to do simple things, right? Like to do something simple doesn't mean it's easy to implement. It just means that because it takes a lot of time to figure those things out, and it often takes a lot of work to make something that's just as simple as like making a counter go up. Like what speed do you have the numbers increase, right? Like that sort of thing. Do you have to, and those, there's so many little things. Like, I'm glad I work in data because I don't have to deal with any of that crap. And I just get to, as long as the numbers add up to what they're supposed to add up to, I'm good.
Yep. Front end is really challenging because you have to anticipate what people are going to do and then figure out what you're going to do when they don't do that, because nobody ever does what you anticipate.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And nobody reads.
Yep.
They have a lot of opportunities with the client. They seem to be very, very clearly aware of that, and Celestalon being promoted to features lead gives me a lot of hope that they are aware that they need some features, some to be updated, some to be added. Don't know if there are any to be removed, but, the game being a little bit more svelte wouldn't be a bad thing. They'll figure it out. All right, let's talk about tournaments so that we can get to new cards as quickly as we can. Let's go.
It's the Grand Tournament!
So we had Masters Tour Ruins of Alterac this past weekend. Gabby was the big winner, bringing Kazakhstan Druid, Miracle Priest, Quest Rogue, and Quest Kazakhstan Demon Hunter. That is going to put him considerably higher in the rankings, I believe, for last call, because he did not have a very good showing at Grandmasters, but this is going to help him quite a bit in his quest for Worlds. The runner-up was Hachikugi, who had Spell Kazakhstan Druid, Owllock, Kazakhstan Warrior, and Quest Fell Demon Hunter. Holy Water and Tinsho were the ones rounding out the top four. No representation from China in the top, I believe the top 8, certainly in the top 4, which was unusual this year because a lot of the events have been won and had significant representation from China. And this one was being taken down by the other regions. So, and getting a European champion is something that, as much as the Europe players to talk about how they're the best region, they have not had one in a bit. So, and Gabby is Gabby, and Gabby was gab jamming, and it was entertaining to watch, especially some of these high level plays. And what was interesting is that the best deck in the tournament was Rally Priest, not Miracle Priest. Rally Priest with Sethic Veilweaver. And it turns out that the plan for this tournament, for the way that you had success in this tournament, was targeting Demon Hunter. 60% of the lineups had Ramp Druid, and another like 10% or so, or 6% had the spell Kazakhstan Druid. So like 65 to 70% of the field had Ramp Druid, and almost 60% had Quest Fell Demon Hunter. If you include other forms of Quest Demon Hunter, it was closer to 65%. So the plan was to, very different from what it had been in recent weeks in qualifiers, where the plan was to ban Demon Hunter, target Druid. Figured out that's not happening because Ramp Druid had just, gotten refined too much. So instead, flip the script, ban Druid, target Demon Hunter, and it turns out that when you do that, there are some options available to you. So there's I made this graphic in the show notes and I made it too small, so I need to make it bigger. So you have the Quest Kazakusan Demon Hunter apparently is actually very good into the Quest Fell Demon Hunter, significantly favored. I was actually kind of surprised it was that big of a deal. And then you just bring Ramp Druid because you're going to bring that anyway. And then both Paladins, both Buff Paladin and Libram Paladin do very well into Demon Hunter. Miracle Priest and Rally Priest both do very well into it. And Questroke also has a very good matchup. It's not as good as the others, but you have to bring 4 decks. And that was really the winning strategy, was targeting that. And you saw the bans. The bans were like 35% in favor of Ramp Druid, and only about 10% of the bans were Quest Demon Hunter. So, and Ramp Druid was still the fifth best performing deck in the tournament. Quest Fell Demon Hunter was just a little bit over 50%. So that was really the story of the weekend. And Rally Priest, I mean, some of the Miracle and Rally Priest, Holy Water in particular, had Miracle Priest and just put on a show in some of these top 8 matches.
Some of the best priest play I've ever seen. Like some of the best, cleanest Miracle play. These are not easy decks to play, whether you're on the Rally build or otherwise. And the way that these players just put on a clinic, Holy Water really stood out to me as just the game states he found himself in. I didn't know they existed.
Yeah. And the sequencing was so clean. Like you can mess up that deck very easily by just like playing the wrong card or playing a Draconic Studies before you should, and then wasting having something sink the discounts into something you don't want it to, and just had it down to a science, played a bunch of cards. I didn't remember a showing like that on a deck like that since like Eddie and DreamHack playing Cloning Gallery Priest. Like that's how far back I'm going with some of this stuff. So he was really, really impressive. And Gabby too on the Rally Priest, because again, that is not an easy deck to play. And it's actually more difficult than the Miracle Priest, because the Miracle Priest is kind of consistent. You know the kinds of things you're working with. You might get something weird off of like a Renew or something, but and the dragons are a little bit different, but most of the cards are pretty standard, and you know what you have to work with. With Rally Priest, you're figuring out your game plan as you go because you're constantly generating new stuff. And Gabby just found his way out of all these situations and really just put on a clinic of how to play that deck really well. So that was a pretty fun way to end this standard year in terms of competition. It was not what I was expecting to see, but it was actually really cool seeing some of those plays happen. So that was Masters Tour Ruins of Alterac. We have the final week of qualifiers for Masters Tour Sunken City are coming up this weekend, along with the Grandmasters playoffs to determine who are going to go into Worlds from Grandmasters, the main Grandmasters season. There will be a Grandmasters last call that is going to be populated with some of the players who did well in this Grandmasters season, along with some players who have qualified from getting a certain number of points in Masters Tours by that point. But this is the most direct way for a lot of these players to get into Worlds, so this should be a pretty fun playoffs. I believe we're back to Conquest for this week. It's usually what the playoffs are. And then we have Lobby Legends in 2 weeks. So a lot of stuff happening this weekend. Should be pretty fun to watch. And you will get another 2 packs for watching Grandmasters if you need a little bit of extra incentive. There's still Alterac Valley packs, not from the new set, but packs are packs.
And I don't remember if we discussed this or not, but Lobby Legends is being casted by Slissa and Gia. So
yep.
Watch that. Just do it. Just watch that.
I enjoyed the Twitter exchange where Slissa told Gia that she was actually going to have to reply to her now.
It's very entertaining, and the two of them together, really, really high-level players, really experienced content creators. It's just going to be one of the better lineups that we've seen commentating a tournament, and I imagine also will be very funny, even though Sissa will probably have to hold back her sense of humor a little bit. She's really big on jokes with some innuendo, and we'll see how that goes.
I'm sure she'll be able to rein herself in.
I hope she's not
I'm sure
all that well, because
down.
like I think it's funny, but probably she'll get some direction to like pull it back a little bit, just a little bit.
Hearthstone's rated teen, it'll be fine.
Yes. And then as far as ladder goes, there is a little bit of information on ladder. Like I talked about earlier, Okani is good. It's in 8 of the 10 classes in the decks that we published this week over in Vicious Syndicate. It's just strong and aggressive decks in particular. Paladin really makes great use of it as well. And Handlock. You should play Okani in Handlock. Kind of weird. It's, to quote from the report, while not an aggressive deck, Handlock likes to have disruption, and Okani helps you close out games in many of the bad matchups where you're forced into the beatdown role. It's just good at keeping the opponent off balance, and it's kind of a pain to play around. It's just a secret that everybody gets to play, while also being a body. I've been very impressed playing against it, and I think we're going to see a good bit of that as well after rotation, because if it's good enough now, it's sure as hell good enough after rotation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Like the 6 bot is a lot of bot, and like you can get rid of it to take the effect off the board, but like that's a lot of damage to sink into a minion that's not otherwise threatening. And especially in Paladin, like you can throw a Divine Shield on it, like here you go, come at me, and then the other way you get around it is by throwing something into it, and sometimes you can even get into some mind games by picking the thing that they don't think that you're going to pick and try to burn something that way. It's very, especially when you catch people off guard. I don't think that's going to happen as much now, but certainly like the day after, that card was not respected as much as it probably is now. And it is very, very impressive.
Yep. So, speaking of cards that are new and exciting, let's talk about new cards. Flawless segue. Let's go.
So we did want to commit a pretty big portion of the episode to the new cards because they're super exciting. We are not going to do a card by card. Just to repeat that again, that did not come over from off curve. But we are going to go over all of the legendaries because there's, relatively few of them by comparison to the, full quantity of cards. And they're pretty sweet. And it looks like every class has a Colossal, which is very fun. I think it would be disappointing otherwise if, like, you were the class that didn't get a Colossal. This is sort of filling the role of anytime there's been a thematic thing, they just make sure to give everyone like that legendary and then also another legendary.
It's almost like going back to Rastakhan when every class got a Loa and a champion. Like every class seems to be getting a Colossal and a Naga for their legendaries.
Oh, I actually wasn't noticing on the Naga thing, but that sounds right.
Yep, it's I'm pretty excited for all these Colossals. They look cool. They look really cool. And a lot of them seem pretty competitively costed. These are priced to see play. They remind me about the same rates that we're getting. They're probably not as good as the Ultra Acura cards, but I think they're not that far off. While also being really flavorful and interesting and fun and all that stuff. So, Mage card. Let's start off with Mage card.
So the Mage card, and honestly the Paladin one as well, are both major reasons of why I think we can expect mech cards in core, because they're really pushing mechs. So first, we have Gaia the Tectonic, which is an 8-mana 5/7 Colossus 2, which means that it summons 2 things. These 2 things are Gaia's Drill, which are 2/3 rushers, and then on the Colossus, there's the effect that after a friendly mech attacks, deal 1 damage to all enemies. So when you play this, you're getting 5/7 body, 2/3 rushers that, assuming they can hit into things, are going to consecrate the enemy board in addition to their attacks. That's a really good deal. Obviously, better if you're able to rush in. If you're not able to rush in, less good. But if you're not able to rush in and you have some mechs already in play and you drop this, you're still getting some immediate face damage. So this is going to make it really scary to leave any mechs up going into a mage's turn 8.
Yeah, it's like it's a board clear with a big body, right? I mean, even if you lose the drills, who cares, right?
Yep.
Like that's still like a 5/7. It's small for an 8 drop, but I mean, you're still getting 7, 9, 9, 13 worth of stats for 8 mana, and 4/6 of it gets to attack 2 bodies and then do damage to the rest of the board. Like that's pretty scary if you're playing against any sort of a board-based deck. Obviously, if you're playing against something that doesn't put anything on the board, then it's just going to sit there and, then you can deal with it. But, if we're fighting for board, and we've heard comments from developers saying that they are intentionally trying to get to more of a board matters state. Again, we've heard that before, but we're seeing some of the things that they've been doing over the past few months to get there. And certainly the cards that they've been releasing seem to be implying that we're moving in that direction too.
Yeah, and this, I would look at this as a lot of the Colossals, they want them to be impactful right away, either in terms of taunt with value or removal and board swings. These are kind of a lot of them are legendary removal spells, and other ones are just like piles of stats along with some defense. I think all of them do something the turn you play them. Yeah, I think they all do. And that seems to be very intentionally designed. This card is 2 swipes that target minions. And 8 mana for 2 swipes is, well, that's the correct rate, except also you get a bonus 5/7 with an aura. So there are some boards where this is nowhere near good enough, where you attack with both and then some stuff lives and whatever. And I wouldn't plan on this being consistently a legendary board clear, but I also wouldn't really want to face it if I had any kind of minion presence whatsoever. Even if this doesn't kill everything, it does a bunch of damage. It makes it really annoying to deal with, and if it stays up, the following turn, any mechs they develop or any mechs they kept already, those all get a lot more powerful when they each have a missile launcher attached to them that hits all of your stuff. So, I don't know, like this, it's a good card. I don't think this makes a deck by itself. This is not Mordresh FireEye, which is Mordresh FireEye, you build around it, and then you play it, and if it's active on turn 8, the game is over. That's not the case with Gaia, but I wouldn't want to face as any kind of minion deck. Even as not a minion deck, if you're playing this against some kind of control-y warrior deck or whatever, maybe the minions die, maybe it stays up and just everything does more damage. It's not exceptional, but it is 3 bodies in 1 card with some damage attached. It's relevant enough to demand some kind of answer, some kind of response from the opponent.
You don't think this pushes you into Mech Mage? Because I think it pushes you into Mech Mage.
This card doesn't make Mech Mage viable. This card is something we put in our Mech Mage deck. I also don't need to be Mech Mage to play this, but right. I'm not viewing this as a Bloodlust finisher for Mech Mage because I think that's pretty optimistic. It goes in the deck, but there are a couple of the behemoths where, like, I want to pivot my strategy because of this card. I think this one just rewards us for doing something specific that we're already doing. And actually, now that I think about it, most of the Colossals, you're not actually building around them. They're just kind of like decent on-rate cards, but we haven't seen any payoffs for really working with them yet. They're just kind of things that you'd already want to be doing. Like, you look at Kolak and Druid. It's if I'm playing a slow ramp Druid, I want to do this. I don't build a Kolak deck. I don't build a Gaia deck. I just put it in a deck where there's already a strategy.
Yeah, but I mean, you could, right? Like this could, if we get anything that generates mech tokens, right? Then this could be like part of like an actual like end game strategy. And you're a little bit more incentivized to put mechs in because we already have mech synergies that are being printed in Mage, and this is, if you're building around it, it becomes like a little Savage Roar, which is not insignificant.
But I think I agree with Het in terms of the elegance of these colossal minions is that they've been designed as, you can put them in a deck that they synergize with, or you can just put them in decks because they're, 4 bombs, kind of aggressively statted and costed. So Gaia can kind of go in whatever, unlike Mordrish, which has a bigger swing, is a bigger finisher, but is very much a build around. These, you can build around them or not. And moving on to the Paladin one, the Leviathan, that one again, it's 7 mana for, I believe, a 4/5 Divine Shield Rush that summons a 4/2 Divine Shield Rush. I'm waiting for Hat to bring it on screen because I don't know if that's right. Okay.
You got the numbers correct.
Yes. Has other effects. So it also, after it attacks, dredge, and then the appendage says, after this attacks, draw a card. So just a really good on-curve play. If you're, again, if the opponent is doing things on board, you get to, for 7 mana, remove 2 things or like 1 bigger thing, keep your stuff because of the Divine Shield, and then discover a card and draw it. Because you dredge and then immediately draw it. Like, that's just a really good deal. And I'll throw that in like whatever kind of control paladin or at the top end of a mech paladin. Like, it just is a good deal.
Yeah. It's funny because like they started to move away several years ago from building like generically good legendaries. Like we get some every once in a while. But like the Sunkeeper Tarems, like we don't get a lot of Sunkeeper Tarems anymore, right? Like where it's just a card that you can throw into any deck of that class. And these do feel like they're expensive, so you're not playing like an aggro deck, but they do feel just generically good. Like you don't, like here, you could be playing a lot of sunken whatevers, right? And that would be the payoff with this card, is if you're playing a lot of things that put cards specifically in the bottom 3 of your deck, so you get to draw it immediately if you really care about that, right? But you don't have to do that. You can just play it and it's fine and it's good enough.
Yeah, they remind me a good bit of the Alterac Hero cards, where like if you're in that class, you're probably running it, but sometimes you're not. Cause if you're a really low curve Paladin deck, you're probably not running this, right? Because you don't want to play anything that costs more than 5. And this is a good card. There are formats where this card would have felt unfair because they are fair formats. This is the king of the fair cards. If you're playing against a Rush Warrior and you drop the Leviathan, oh man, you just killed their stuff, you got some board presence, you either drew a card that you knew that you got, or you drew a card and then picked a card for the next turn, and they still got these bodies in play. Oh my god, that's crazy. But in the world that we're in right now, it's solid. It's good. Worse than Lightforged Cariel, but a lot of cards are a lot worse than Lightforged Cariel. And I don't know if that card will stay 7. I feel pretty confident this one will. But I'd have to have a really good reason to not play this in a Paladin deck that's planning on getting past turn 5. And I don't mind there being cool legendaries that we get that's like, I can fit this in and it's rad when I play it, but also doesn't win me every game that I play it or draw it. It's not a huge power spike. It's just strong. Just a strong card. And encouraging players to play with the cool card that they got for their class, that's kind of something that they want to do. It doesn't have to be narrow and specific like the quest. It can just be, I'm a Paladin player, I like playing this in my Paladin decks, and it is probably pretty good there. Cool. I wonder what Priest players feel like. Hey, Wegagood!
Happy all the time.
Not all the time, but during this reveal season for sure.
Deck Tech tweeted that the Priest cards that we're getting in this set are spicy before, I don't remember if it was before or after we saw the Colossal, and we haven't seen all the Priest cards yet, and he said we're not done
it was after the other Priest Legendary is what we heard about.
Oh no, he said something, he said that was one of them, but he said we're still not done yet, so. Yeah. But yeah, Blackwater Behemoth Whew, this make me feel feelings. So this is an 8 mana, 8/10 beast with lifesteal, and the thing it summons is Behemoth's Lure, which is this adorable looking orca next to a little what?
Oh, I was gonna say, well, the thing is the lure. I mean, it's an anglerfish.
The lure
right?
is adorable. Like the thing that it's luring to is not, but the lure itself is adorable.
No, the orca is
it's
not
like
the
the
lure.
other
The
way.
bulb is the lure. The orca is the thing that is going to be eaten.
Oh, is that what? Oh, the lured. Sorry. Okay.
This
I
is
forgot-
much
I
darker than
missed
you
the
think
thing.
it is.
Ah,
The priest
you know.
minion is going to eat an orca.
Good. It's adorable and we're gonna eat it. So it's a 2 mana 1/4 beast. At the end of your turn, force a random enemy minion to attack the Blackwater Behemoth. So as long as this thing is alive, and 4 health is still a decent amount of health on the lure, then you get to play an 8/10 and then remove a minion almost all the time and heal 8. That seems pretty good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, this is how they make it kinda sorta rush. Kinda sorta, but the reason why this isn't rush and where it could be better than rush, if the lore lives, you basically end up with Wind Fury here. Because the minion gets to attack, and then also gets attacked at the end of the turn. So you can theoretically gain another 16. I don't think the lore is going to live all that often. But it's still 8 mana, kill a thing, gain 8 life, and then present a couple bodies, and you have to deal with at least one of them. And even if you kill the lure, still got an 8 attack lifesteal thing.
Well, not only that, but like the lure kind of heals you, right? Because like that's 4 damage that's not hitting your face.
Yep.
Right? So like that's another way that it's soaking damage for you on top of everything else. And I mean, like it's worse the turn you play it than rush because you don't get to choose where it goes, but it's way better if the lure sticks.
Yeah. So speaking as an aggressive player, I would like to not play against this. I would like to not face this because it's going to kill my thing, gain my opponent some life, and I will once again be faced with the idea, if I can't lethal through 8 healing with one of my things dying, how do you get through that game leaving this up? I don't think it's really possible. So if you don't have lethal when this comes down and you were an aggressive deck, good luck. Maybe Hero Scabs, I don't know.
They're healing you to 30 almost all the time, right? Because like if you don't have removal for this, that's spell based, like you're having to trade through it. It's probably going to take you multiple trades to get through it. You're probably healing the priest up to 30 if you have to trade through it to get it off the board.
And I just said Hero Scabs, but if it's after turn 8, if it's Hero Scabs and you just say, okay, replay it and replay the other lore, then you kill both of my 4/2s and gain 16. I don't want to face this. I don't want to. I am uninterested in playing against this card.
Did we lose all the copy effects in Priest? I guess we did. Oh, that makes me sad. If the Luminance on the lore will be amazing.
Nope. Absolutely not. Might still have Faceless. I don't know. Either way, I think this card it's a cool way. I like what they've done with this and with Mida of making annoying minions to face aggro that do not have taunt. Because we're used to just make giant taunts. This does not have taunt, and as an aggro player, I still really don't want to deal with it, but at least there is the turn it comes down, or if I happen to have enough damage to deal with the 8 healing and the removal, then I can still win the game instead of the game just being over the second you play it. So I think that's a really good space to explore, where there is that window of vulnerability, because that was kind of the issue with Baron's Priest, that the window of vulnerability was so small. And this gives you a little bit more.
We just need Sunfury Protector back to give it taunt. That's the solution.
No, we don't. What we do need to do, let's talk about the Rogue one, because, it's my turn. I get to talk about a card. So the Rogue one.
This is the one that in the trailer, you've probably seen it a million times watching the trailer over and over again.
So this is Krabatoa. Comes with claws. Krabatoa is a 6 mana 6/5 colossal +2. Your Krabatoa claws have +2 attack. It summons 2 claws that are 2/1 rushers that drop 2/1 weapons. Each one is a 2/1 rusher that drops a 2/1 weapon. That is Death Rattle. Both the minions and the weapons are Krabatoa claws. So if Krabatoa is in play, the 2/1 rush minions are 4/1 rush minions, and they each drop 4/1 weapons. So effectively, 6 mana, attack with 4 with a rusher, attack for 4 with your weapon, attack for 4 with your other rusher, re-equip another weapon for the next turn. I am assuming that Krabatoa is going to die in that in-between turn, so that means it is 6 mana 4, 12 damage the turn you play it, 4 of which has charge, and then a 2/1 swing next turn, assuming they deal with the 6/5 that's thrown in. If they do not, it is a 6/5 that comes with 16 damage. So, close your eyes. Think about what Hero Kurtrus would look like if it was gray and black instead of green. And here we are. Instead of 5 armor, you get a 6/5 instead. Very similar to Hero Kurtrus, and that card's pretty good at 6. So it's a board swing. It's not that great if your opponent doesn't have minions. But if your opponent has any minions, they're dead now, and my opponent probably just took 4, or it can kill 3 minions. And Rogue doesn't have the same number of board swings that you're used to, outside of, like, Questroid can do SI7 Assassin stuff. Yes, you've got Hero Scabs, but it doesn't scale as well as Kurtrus does with the hero power in the long game, though Felfire Deadeye is rotating. But in terms of immediate board impact, it is surprisingly similar, and being similar is a pretty good place to be. So I have trouble thinking of too many Rogue decks that have minions at all that would skip this card.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't scale because it has a shell, not scales.
It's true. There's plenty of scaling in this set already. We have a lot of Nagas.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just damage, right? Like it's damage that you get to throw face if you want to, or and remove minions to get out of the way of throwing the damage face. Like, this seems like again generically good. There's not really. I mean, I guess there's probably some sort of like weapon. There's still weapon things in standard if you want to make the claws bigger, I guess. But you're probably not spending that on like a 4/1 weapon. But
this one might be the most generic out of all of the ones I've seen, and also I'm fine with that because I'm putting it in all of my Rogue decks. Like, I don't need this to be particularly purpose-driven. I just want to play a bunch of damage. Here we are. We did it. Thoughts, Edelweiss?
She's still reeling from my pond, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was easy. I mean, you kind of said it all. This card, I just looked at it and I was like, yep, this is good. You put it in all of the things until it's too slow. Like, who knows how long it'll stay at pace, but certainly the meta that we're going to be entering into, this seems like it's just going to be very solid.
Not all cards need figuring out, right? Like, some of them are just, it's pretty clear how you use it. And yeah.
Yep. So, a card that is, I think, a little bit more interesting. Let's talk about Gigafin. Gigafin is an 8-mana 7/4 Warlock Legendary Murloc. Colossal +1. Battlecry. Destroy all enemy minions. Death Rattle. Spit them out. The colossal appendage here is Gigafin's Maw. It is a 6-mana 4/7 with Taunt. Death Rattle. Permanently destroy all enemy minions that Gigafin ate. So, it's a 7/4 and a 4/7 taunt. If the taunt dies first, the minions never come back. If the 7/4 dies first, then the minions do. And they come back without buffs. It's like Terran Gorefiend, without the +1/+1. It's destroy and resummon. And it does trigger death rattles. It says devour and spit. It just means destroy and resummon. Also, I don't know if any of you have seen the full art, but given the placement of Gigafin's Maw, I think that spit is off by 1 letter as to where the minions come from. They do come back, but you may not want them. So the question here is there damage-based removal to kill the main body? if not kind of devastating, but also is a temporary Twisting Nether that resets board buffs and comes with 14/14 stat or 11/11 in stats, good enough? I think probably good enough.
I mean, we play Twisting Nether sometimes as it is, and this is, this is Twisting Nether with a body. I mean, that's kind of the dream, isn't it? Twisting Nether with a body is pretty much like what you hope for as a control warlock. So
2 bodies.
As long as you can protect the front half, then it seems like it's got to be better than Twisting Nether in most cases.
I mean, and at worst, they spend a removal spell, kill the Gigafin, get their stuff back. You've at least bought a turn, right? Because they can't attack as long as none of those minions have charge, which is pretty likely. They're not going to be able to attack immediately. And I think this is just a lot of tempo. I mean, if it all lives, you get to swing for 11 the following turn after you just blew up your opponent's board. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're killing the 7/4 without going through the 4/7, how are you then killing the 4/7 now that your board's dead, right? Your board's stuck inside the maw. Like, now you have to deal with the 4/7, which is still going to do damage. And it's still going to require like a decent amount of removal to get rid of. If you're not,
if you kill the 7/4, you get your board back, right?
Oh, you kill the 7/4, you get your board back, yeah. Then you still, so then you have, never mind. That's the 2 a.m. wake up yesterday. Rear ends up we had.
You're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's created as a sort of catch-22 thing, right? Where like, oh, I lost my board, so how do I deal with this this stuff to get my board back? But yeah, I mean, just really interesting card. I think it's going to lead to some sweet decisions and stuff. And there's going to be a lot of scenarios where even though they get it back, it's just worse. Like you were saying, it doesn't have the stuff. So you use this on a shaman that was playing the, freeze nonsense with Macaw and Guardian. And you're like, cool. Well, even if you get them back, they're 3/3s now. So.
Yeah. And Tito has a good point in chat as well. This only hits enemy minions. So if you are the fabled Warlock mid-range deck and you want to get some taunts out of the way, then you just eat them and then you hit your opponent.
Yeah. So
even Warlock would have played this card. Even Warlock would 100% have played this.
So the deck that plays this is not likely to have minions on its side of the board at the point in the game where it's playing this.
Probably not, but you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe you're doing some blood magic action, right? You dredge this up and put it on top of your deck, make it cost life, throw it down on I don't know what turn is that, turn 5.
With the Warlock.
The other Murloc?
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be
We were asking what the hell Murloc are you trying to dredge up? Well, we got the answer.
Yep. Exactly.
If you play this for 0 mana and 8 life, this card is unbelievable. Like, it's completely ridiculous if you don't pay mana for it. I understand that it's a controversial statement to say this card is better if you don't pay mana for it. But I said it anyways. Kind of content you can tune in for at Coin Concede. We have one more Colossal to talk about this week. Take it away, Steve.
So the Nelly the Great Thresher is a 7 mana 5/5 warrior beast. Colossal +1 battle cry. Discover 3 pirates to crew Nelly's ship. And the back end, I'm waiting for it to update on the stream so I can see it, because thank you. So the back end is Nelly's pirate ship, which is a 2/6, also a beast, even though it's a ship. With taunt, with death rattle, add Nelly's pirate crew to your hand. They cost 1. Now, it has later been confirmed that you cannot discover a pirate in the second or third discover that you've discovered in a previous discover. So you are not getting 3 Mr. Smites. Put that idea out of your head. But
everyone had that same idea. Everyone was terrified of triple smite.
Yes. And I mean, still a 1 mana smite regardless, because you don't have to play it that turn, right? Like, it's just going to be 1 mana in your hand for the rest of the game. So you'll have a 1 mana smite whenever you'd like, and there aren't that many pirates in neutral and warrior left to say. I think there's 18. The last time I counted, we might get more, but there's not that many pirates. So you have a reasonable that's like Primordial Suddies sized minion pools. And you know how often you get like Astromancer, Solarian, or Guild Trader or whatever out of Primordial Studies right now. That's about as often as you're going to get Mr. Smite, unless they add a lot of pirates into the set or in core.
Well, specifically, I'm glad you mentioned Warrior Neutral, because this is not the same pool as the Juggernaut. Juggernaut is random pirates discover is only your class and neutral. So I think it is pretty likely that at least one of these 3 pirates will be Mr. Smite, unless they dilute the pool tremendously. We have some amalgams in there too. Might get some amalgams.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that if you're playing against this, you should plan on Smite coming down soon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Seems sweet. And again, I think if stuff is slowing down, like 7 is just a pretty good top end point for a lot of mid-range type decks. Maybe you even run this in like Quest Pirate Warrior. I don't know if that's necessary, but could be an interesting swing turn power card. I mean, again, it's pretty good stats in terms of the 5/5 body plus the 2/6 taunt.
It's okay.
They could, yeah.
A lot of the other stats
they
are
could
much
pull,
higher.
They could pull enough pirates out of core to make you want to play this, I think, in Quest Warrior. Because, like, we don't, again, this is what's so hard about evaluating these cards, is that we don't know what's happening with core. They did put some pirates I mean, there's a lot of the pirates that were introduced in Dead Mines. And the only pirates we're leaving, I believe, are Circus Amalgam and Sword Eater. But they could pull some of the cheaper minions out of core to kind of that they put in to make you want to play this. They could pull like Bloodsail Raider out, or I think or Fogsail Freebooter, I think, was introduced into core. So they could pull some of those out to kind of slow that deck down and make this the way that you finish the quest, if that's something they wanted to do. But we just don't know.
If they do that, that doesn't make me want to play this. It makes me want to not play Quest Warrior. I think this is probably the weakest Colossal we've seen so far. It's a 5/5 and a 2/6 for 3 pirates. In Pirate Quest Warrior, you just want to play pirates quickly, and they gave us a bunch of 2-mana pirates already. We have the neutral Tuskar. We have the Amalgam, which discovers another pirate. Even with just those 2, we kind of already know that we'll have enough gas in the tank, along with Harbor Scam, to get as many pirates as we need. Losing Sword Eater hurts. That card is very powerful. But the new Amalgam that will discover another pirate is really, really strong. So I don't want this clogging my draws in Quest Pirate Warrior. And it's not good enough of a body in any kind of Control Warrior. So it has to be in some kind of weird mid-range value. It's a 5/5 and a 2/6 on turn 7. Compared to a lot of what we're getting elsewhere here, it's only okay. And I have to really want a bunch of pirates. I have to be able to do something with a bunch of pirates.
So I will counter that. The odds for getting Mr. Smite make this a card you might want to play in Charge Warrior. Because a 1-mana Mr. Smite makes that combo a lot more doable.
Galvangar's not a pirate, right?
He is not.
No.
But adding, potentially 12 damage to that combo, because you could play it after you attack with the Galvangars and fit it in, that is a lot of extra reach for that deck. It's for 1 card, right? That I could see it working its way in there. And I mean, again, it's still a taunt with another body. So, and sometimes you have control mirrors where you just need a little bit of extra value too. I mean, I don't know how good, how good Discover Pirates are going to be on average, but I think the odds for getting Mr. Smite makes that something in Charge where you may want to consider.
Maybe. I am the most skeptical of this one just because the decks that we have right now that really want pirates want a lot of pirates very quickly and are rewarded with an infinite value engine, so they don't need a one-shot value refill, even though 3 1-mana pirates that you choose is good. But drawing this early in that deck would be really, really rough. I'm curious.
I'm going to make some kind of conditioning warrior, and I'll probably throw this in there.
That sounds extraordinarily plausible. All right.
We've got better cards for you to conditioning than this in the set, though.
That is true.
Yeah. Shall we talk about the regular legendaries? There's one that I want to talk about first. It's called Flameworker. I mean, Ladies Theno. Say 3-mana 2/4 Naga Demon Hunter legendary. Immune while attacking. After you cast a spell, attack the lowest health enemy. So it is immune when it's attacking based on the proc or when it's attacking normally. This is Flame Waker with non-random pings. Now, non-random doesn't mean better, because if you want it to go face and there are minions in play, it will hit the minions. But Flame Waker, good card. Gives all of your spells 2 damage in addition. I would be very surprised if this doesn't see play. Now, I don't want you thinking of this like it's a board clear that you can rely on, because it's not. It is a proactive card that deals damage. Sometimes it will deal damage to minions. Sometimes it will deal damage to face, because yes, it can go face. But I would be pretty surprised if this wasn't in most Demon Hunter decks, especially with the amount of cheap spells Demon Hunter has access to, with your Fel Barrages and Chaos Strikes and your Wings of Hate and your Fury and the new multi-strike card. There are a lot of really cheap Demon Hunter spells that we already want to play. I don't think this makes us build a spell-heavy Demon Hunter deck, though you can get goofy with it. A friend of mine who likes combos like you do, Edelweiss, suggested turn 9 Ysera, turn 10 this Nightmare Ysera Awakens. Because you can buff this
spicy.
thing. You can buff this thing.
Well, that's not what I thought you were gonna say. Because Hockey was talking in the Discord today about Stormpike Commander, which is a 2-mana 2/3 that every time you cast a spell, give a minion in your hand +1/+1.
I believe that Hockey said that, and I did not know what that card is, so I'm very glad that you told me.
I think the problem with the Stormpike is that you need to do some math to figure out how much you want to buff Lady Sutheno before you actually play her and start getting those spell activations for her rather than the Stormpike. I really like this Ysera idea, and we're still going to have Neralex around too, right? So you could run that just in case you get the Nightmare.
The old backup Ysera.
Yep. I'm down for something like that, because then you don't have to do all that trying to figure out, I don't know, what you're gonna go off on.
It's screw math.
Like, yeah, exactly. just let me throw Talon, Ysera, and this, and we're good.
I have a different plan.
Talon stays.
I think he will. I have a different plan. I'm gonna play a 1-drop and a 2-drop, then play this on 3. And either they deal with it, or I deal free damage.
Yeah.
Where's your sense of adventure, really?
I would like to go on an adventure to my opponent's face. I will visit repeatedly. That is where I want to go. It's a new and exciting way to deal them damage. Isn't that fun? You really can go home again.
I mean, I like going face just all at once at the end of the game. That's how I like to go face.
You can have the end of the game come much sooner if you start faster.
Yeah, but then where's the making your opponent suffer? That's not fun.
You make twice as many opponents die in the same amount of time.
Yeah, but they just go on to the next game. If you kind of let them linger in the game, you get to enjoy it more.
Legendary here. It's called Hydra the Heretic. There is 7 mana, 4/5 Naga. Battle cry: for each spell you've cast while holding this, summon a minion of that spell's cost. This reminds me somewhat of
King Phaoris.
King Phaoris, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That one was based on the spells that you were holding in your hand, so you didn't have to play them. But this definitely has those sorts of vibes, right? You cast a bunch of spells over the course of the game, and then you get an instant board. I'm a little skeptical of this, though, because it is while holding this, and that text has tended to be a problem because sometimes you don't pick it up until very late, and then like now, once you've got it, you've got to start juicing it up. So it kind of remains to be seen how good that's gonna be, and I think Druid is just honestly one big ol' question mark, because we know they've got Guff, we know Guff is great, but without Overgrowth and Lightning Bloom, how does the class hold up? Not so sure.
Yeah, I mean, at 7 mana, you're going to be holding this, assuming you don't top deck it, right? you're going to be holding this for a while. So you're probably going to be building it up. It's weird because it's not like, where does it fit, right? Because like, it feels win more in kind of a ramp druid, though we don't know what the hell ramp druid's actually going to be doing because it's losing all of its win conditions. It could fit into like a token druid as like a late refill because you don't really care in that deck like how big the minions are. But again, if you top deck it, you're just going to be really sad. And if you draw it early, you're also kind of be sad because it costs 7 mana and you would very much like for the game to be over before then. So yeah, I just don't know where it fits.
That is part of the reason why I am somewhat skeptical overall of the power level of Nagas. Urgapat just said this in chat, and I agree. They are almost all terrible top decks, or at least a lot of the ones that care about the volume of spells or the specifics of the spells that are played while it's in your hand. The sequencing is so important that you're compelled to keeping these unplayable cards in the mulligan, and then you lose before you play them, or you top deck them and then they don't do anything. So the conditionality is really specific in terms of the sequencing and exactly what opportunities you have. If you get the payoff, it works, but you need to play a deck with a lot of large spells and some large minions. This is a large minion. You have to have it in your hand. You have to not be dead. And that is just a lot of hoops to jump through. And we've seen Druid often gets expensive cards that don't really make sense. And we say, I wonder where this fits. Sheldress Moontree comes to mind, where it's the top 3 spells of your deck are cast when drawn. And we asked, where does this fit? And we found the answer. It doesn't. So I don't know if this will be more of the same, because I can see very clearly where the payoff is here, especially with Scale of Onyxia in the game. Scale of Onyxia solves a lot of problems, but I don't know if this card would be good because of that, or if it just means that Scale is a good card and we win some other way. We're losing Cenarian Ward, along with a bunch of other stuff, so maybe we need this and to make a spell-heavy Druid deck. But maybe also we just win with Kazakhstan, because, you know.
Yeah. I think you still win with Kazakhstan or Onyxia. And in addition to Scale, we now also have Otters.
They're adorable, though.
They're cute.
Yeah, but they're still a board clear for a Druid in the mid game that I want them to have.
But they're adorable, so you won't mind as much.
That's incorrect.
I bet they make a really cute sound too.
They certainly do.
To further sidebar though, in terms of Naga broadly, I think
hope you're going to talk about Otters, and I'm disappointed now.
No. I think it's kind of cool how it's a mechanic that leans towards pre-planning, leads towards probably more controlling strategies. Usually spell-heavy strategies are sort of control combo. And that just reads very Queen Azshara to me, is this like scheming, pre-planning, and like trying to control things. Even if it doesn't work out necessarily.
The flavor is there. It's spells and scheming, sure. Gameplay impact remains to be seen.
I mean, it feels like elementals in Ungoro. It's like, I mean, we keep going back to Ungoro because this is basically like wet Ungoro. And I mean, the Naga are kind of like elementals in Ungoro. If you played an elemental last turn, then do the thing. Well, that's hard. Oh, and it's hard to, I mean, this is better because it doesn't have to be specifically last turn at least, right? Like the problem with elementals is like, if you broke the elemental chain, that was always the next turn you were going to need to be able to play an elemental. Now you don't have to play it like it's just whenever you want. You just need to be able to juice it up. But if you're top decking it, it is objectively terrible most of the time.
Yep. It's and Dredge might help us there in terms of setting up top decks when we need them. But it remains to be seen what the rest of Druid's kit is. All right. It's a card that's already getting hotly discussed in the chat, that was hotly discussed on twitter.com last week. Raj Nazjan, also known as Face Naga. 2 mana, 2/3 Hunter Naga, legendary. After you cast a spell, deal damage equal to its cost to the enemy hero. Oh boy. Okay. So, people had strong reactions to this card when it first came out. Blah, blah, talking about board meta, blah, blah, from hand damage. I get it. I understand it. However, a lot of conversation happened about this card in Quest Hunter, and I am unconvinced in Quest Hunter to the point where I think it's probably not good. It goes in Face Hunter. 100% it goes in Face Hunter. Is it a build-around crazy legendary in Face Hunter? No, it's a decent card. The comparison that I've made is that this is an Intrepid Initiate where the spell burst repeats itself. You can spell burst as many times as you want to get the extra damage. The dream is play it on 2, hope your 2/3 survives. That's an important part because it doesn't happen very much. Then ramming mount it, and then the game is probably over in turn 5, turn 6. All right, you deal them 3 extra damage, you keep them off the board. It's a 4/5, and then we kill them with all of our spells in Face Hunter. And if they kill it on turn 2, whatever. We played a 1-drop, we played this on 2, it's okay. In Quest Hunter, if you play it early, your deck has no minions in it, except for Battlecry minions. So all the removal they've been holding goes live. Unless you kill it yourself, in which case, whatever. But it doesn't progress your quest for you. If it is used for post-quest late game to deal extra damage, it could be theoretically a lot of damage. If you play this on turn 10, after your quest is done, then it is 2 mana for 8 additional damage, assuming your hand is full of spells. However, this is assuming that you have finished your quest, made it turn 10 as Quest Hunter, and have a handful of spells. Do we need that to be better? Because we already win those games. So if we can't play it till late and it's only good after a quest is completed, I don't really think that we're looking to include this card. However, if you need to do a lot of extra damage over the course of the game, if there is something that there's a deck that gains a lot of life and the extra 8 damage is necessary and you end up in a slow meta where you can justify holding a card for a while and you're not really losing out, maybe. But remember, we're playing Furious Howl, and you don't want a card that just sits in your hand all game when Furious Howl is in your deck. So I'm unconvinced in Questline Hunter. I think in a proactive Hunter deck with a decent spell density like current Face Hunter, especially with minion buffs, and this card could potentially be very powerful, especially if it snowballs the game early. But in Quest Hunter, I think it doesn't get your quest there and is only good after you're already doing the good thing, so I don't think it makes sense to include.
Yeah, I guess the only argument you can make is, well, you need minions for Drekthar to pull out. Right.
In Quest Hunter?
If you're gonna, yeah.
I wouldn't play Drekthar in Quest Hunter.
Well, I mean, it's being played now in Quest Hunter.
So
It is.
The current build is like Drekthar with a pair of Vipers and then a pair of mini mages, because certain decks just don't have a response to stealth, and a stealth spell damage is quite good. Plus, you can get that free 3 damage attack in at some point as well. And I kind of think most of the time that's just going to be better than Raj, because sometimes you'll roll out that mini mage early to get the spell damage online. Or if you're a version that's running Thalnos, right? Like, the spell damage is just more flexible. And yeah, the way I want to be playing this is curving it into Ramming Mount or Biscuit, and then the opponent just being like, well, I guess we're dead.
Yeah, with the caveat, assuming mini mage stays in core.
Sure. But
What a
if it
world we
doesn't-
live in.
If
I
it
know,
doesn't, you still have
it's so-
probably Thalnos and
Yeah.
something else.
I don't
right?
want to Drekthar out of Thalnos. That sounds so sad.
I don't know.
It's-
You're getting the Rustshot Vipers. I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to do that either, but I at least see the value in the tradable summon. Pulling out the 1/1 draw card, that's not what I want my Call to Arms to be doing. I'm all set. But yeah, so it's because of how focused Quest Hunter is on finishing the quest, and how this card is really only it enhances your winning board state. That's really the reason why I don't see it as much. You could build any sort of minion and spell proactive Hunter deck. I think you have to be pretty proactive to get there, and Quest Hunter is very reactive early until you get the damage online. So, strong proactive card.
Not to mention, like, you're very often just shooting your own stuff to be able to get the spells off, and like, that's kind of the antithesis of what you want. You want Raj to be sticking. You don't want to be hitting it with like bola shots.
Yes. I mean, it gets you a couple extra damage to the opponent, but it's not worth the card slot, I don't think. And Face Hunter is going to look different. Blooder is pointing out correctly. Rhino rotates, so maybe instead of Wrangler, we're doing Drekthar Face Hunter. And if I pull this, I'm pretty happy. Yeah. It's as long as you're proactive and you have a decent spell density, I think it's worth it. All right. Steve, we have the Talk of the Town Priest card.
Oh, you mean the card that made everyone wonder if I was still alive? Yeah.
Yes, that one.
because I was in a meeting when this card got revealed, so I didn't say anything on Twitter for about half an hour, and I started getting tweets like, "Are we sure Wicked Good is still alive? Has anyone checked on him?" So I'm not. I'm going to try to pronounce this. This is not going to go well. Priestess Valish, I guess.
Yeah.
How we
That's
pronounce
what I'm
that?
Yep.
Felish.
Is a 0-mana 1/1 Naga with a battle cry. Refresh an empty mana crystal for each spell you've cast this turn. So we're getting. Tomberry Blue had tweeted that like we're getting like all kinds of cards that normally are in other classes, and we're just like stealing other classes' identities. We're getting like beasts and gigantic beasts, and now we're getting ramp. And there was something else, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I mean, this is I would be a lot more excited about this. I'm not saying I'm not excited about it. I would be a lot more excited about this if it was in the current sets and not after Nazmani and Sethic we're going to rotate. I'll say that much, because like this with Nazmani and Sethic, woo, that makes me feel feelings.
I would be excited to uninstall Hearthstone in that meta.
I mean, it's still it's gonna be a matter of like, how are you building your deck? I think if we have some sort of a bless deck, then this will go in it. I don't know that you necessarily want this in Control Priest, just because like you have a lot of spells, but a lot of the cheap spells that we're playing early, like Renew, are kind of going away. You still have stuff like Call the Grave and Gift of the Naru and stuff like that, but I don't know how many the spells that are left in Standard. I mean, we have to see what's left, what's coming, what's left to reveal. The cards I'm excited about playing cost like 9, so I don't know where this is going to fit, but I think it's probably going to be worth trying, and it definitely could be impactful. I mean, sometimes you just need like a couple of extra mana to be able to fit in one more spell to be able to clear a board. And if this does that, like, that's great. And I mean, you're spending a card slot on it, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of cost there.
So, Wicked Good, I'm going to say something that's going to make you very sad, but I feel like one of the best scenarios for this card is just going to be on the coin in Shadow Priest.
It could be. I mean, that's fine
maybe
too.
not, but maybe not. But
what does it even do there? What does it do there?
Let you
get another one drop out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not playing this card in Shadow Priest if that's what I'm doing, because we lose Raise Dead. What other spells are we playing? It's just a Tiny Fin.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like half of the time when you're on coin, you can get another one drop in play quickly, or it might not work out, but or just like playing a little extra on a Thrive turn for Mankrik. It's not amazing, but it's just like a little extra tempo on certain turns. Maybe there's not enough card advantage for that to be worth it, but I imagine this is going to be a lot of little edges, at least for now. Maybe somewhere down the line you'll get bigger swings, but right now there's no cost reduction visible for spells in Priest, losing Palm Reading, losing Nazmani, and hopefully not having the Radiant Elemental in core.
No, nerf that to 4
way.
anyway. There's no way they're bringing that back at the way that it was. Even if they bring it back, it's 4 mana right now, for wild reasons.
The Radiant Elemental?
Yeah.
What?
Source Apprentice.
Did they nerf that?
No, they nerfed Source Apprentice.
I thought they nerfed Radiant Elemental. Am I just like
no? Just Sorcerer's Apprentice.
I don't think they nerfed Radiant.
I thought they nerfed Radiant Elemental. I don't know. No, they didn't. Never mind. But there's no way they're bringing that back.
No,
why did I
absolutely
think that
not.
I got the confused with Sorcerer's Apprentice. I need to not get woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning, clearly. But it's but there, I cannot imagine like after they went through all this thing with global mana reduction, and they're going to bring back like Radiant. They could bring back Lyra. Like I could see them maybe bringing back Lyra, but Radiant Elemental, I cannot see it. And even then, I just did a quick search of like the shadow spells that are left in Standard, and it is sad.
Not much. Yeah, without raised dead, it's pretty rough.
Yeah,
So we'll see if the deck can
yeah.
survive.
Like you've got Void Shard, and that's like the only card you can really like justify running in that deck.
When you still thrive for Mancrick.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, if you're thriving with like 2 other spells in the deck and Mancrick,
It's Shadow
Yeah.
Priest loses most of its good cards, so it's going to need a bunch of help. I'm sure it'll happen. Princess Felice is... I don't blame anyone for being spooked by a priest card that gives priest a bunch of free mana. As of right now, this is exactly the wrong thing for priest. The thing that makes me the most scared right now is Switcheroo, which is another card from the new set. 3 mana priest spell, draw two minions, swap their stats. Making a giant 0 mana minion is the powerful part here, but that has very little to do with the text on Felice. Felice says refresh, not add, so you can't jump ahead turns. You have to have 2 turns at the same time in sequence, and you have to play the spells first. So that means for a Bless deck, you have to have the minion in play first for the Bless to be relevant, or you have to have a whole lot of really cheap spells on top of a minion you play that turn, and more stuff to do after. Along with Handmaiden, which is the new Priest Naga minion that if you played 3 spells with this in your hand, draw 3 cards, it has a compounded version of the top deck problem we were talking about with Nagas beforehand. So there are scenarios where this is a crazy card that will pay off in a crazy game. Most of the time, I think you're going to be holding this and wishing it was something else. There will be future worlds where this card feels absolutely broken, and I would not be surprised if there's a point in the future where this is problematic. As of right now, we do not have the infrastructure for it, we don't have the payoff for it, and if there's any class that I'm okay with cheating a little bit of mana to try and be the combo class in Standard, if it's Priest, that's a lot better than anything we've had over the past year, compared to Demon Hunter or Rogue or even Mozaki Mage or whatever. The combo that we're concerned about here involves Priest starting the turn with a minion and then killing you by attacking. If that's the combo we're dealing with in Standard, Standard's in a fantastic spot. And even then, I still don't think that the tools are really there for Priest to exploit this. I expect they will be. We have 4 more Priest cards we're seeing from the set and core set. It's entirely possible it's scary now. Knowing what we know right now, there's nothing that indicates that this will be crazy powerful.
There could also just be a neutral that they print that is effectively a priest card, right?
Sure.
That interacts with this. Like there are things that can happen. Like we've only seen like a third of the cards so far. So there's a lot that can happen between now and when the set gets fully revealed that can make this a lot better. But knowing what we know now, it's spooky because Miracle Priest and Rally Priest are a thing right now, but those are not going to be a thing post rotation.
Yep. All right. Got a Rogue Legendary. Steve was in a meeting for half an hour and got pinged. I was eating a cheeseburger, and it had been 45 seconds, and I got tagged by Celestlon wondering if I was okay. So, Purple, I'm fine. Don't worry. But there is a new and exciting Rogue card that cares about pirates. Pirate Admiral Hooktusk. Battlecry, if you summoned 8 other pirates this game, plunder the enemy. We're no longer plundering prizes, we are now plundering people. The 3 options for plundering. This is a discovery, you get one of these. Take 5 cards from your opponent's deck, take 2 cards from your opponent's hand, or take control of your opponent's highest attack minion. It's their supplies, their gold, or their ship. It is unclear if taking it from their deck puts it in your hand. The assumption here is that you are transferring it from their zone to your zone, so deck to deck, hand to hand, board to board. And it requires you to summon 8 pirates. You don't have to play them, you have to summon them. Pirate fans, Rogue fans, I think this card is fun. I think it's a fun card. I hate to break it to you, it's not a good card. This is a bad card. You can steal a minion, but 8 pirates is a crazy restriction. Taking a couple cards out of your opponent's hand is fine. Taking from their deck, whatever. There are so few games where that's ever going to matter, and I don't know if card draw is going to be where it is, and you have to hit pretty specific things they haven't even drawn yet for that to be relevant, while also going to fatigue as a rogue. I think most likely the best play is going to be it's an 8/8 with a mind control attached, which is not bad, but you have to have 8 pirates. 8. That's so many. That's more than the Warrior Pirate quest. And the payoff
almost 9.
is... It's not... 8 is almost 9. Glad you're on the show.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen like one card that summons 2 pirates, that sunken ship thing. I don't think that's quite the level of summoning we need. We'd need some other kind of enabler to make me believe you could do this consistently on 8, or just for some kind of pirate rogue to just have insane density for some reason. That seems unlikely. I think
Or-
most likely way this would get played is if there's something that like summons either 2 pirates cheaply or 3 pirates somewhat cheaply. I guess we'll see. But the effect I'm looking at a lot of the time is just take 2 cards from their hand, because it's +4 in terms of cards, right? You get 2 away from them and add them to your own, and discard is something that they are generally pretty hesitant to allow you to do to your opponent. And I know there's going to be some people that will get really upset losing to that. But yeah, the effects are kind of mid. I don't know, at least for now. They can be powerful swings, but pretty situational.
I mean, it's not really a
and
swing, except for the main. They can feel like powerful swings the way that Ticket has felt like a powerful swing if your deck didn't do anything. But if your deck does
right.
something, the turn you play this is either a mind control or it's nothing.
Right. I mean, I think therein is the advantage, is it's much more flexible than Ticket is, in that you can discover based on the situation which one you want to do.
It's weird because it's like an anti-combo tech, but you can't just like tech it into a deck. Like,
right.
if
It's
you
not even
can run
anti-combo.
this
This is anti-fatigue, anti-control more than anything. Like, if it's anti-combo, you have to hope that you pick the right zone. And even then, if I'm trying to beat combo with an 8-drop that requires me to play 8 pirates first, like, I think that I can realign my strategy a little bit and maybe try and beat combo by killing them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I will argue that 8 is not as much in Rogue as it is in every other class, because Shadow Step is a card. And if you're playing a deck that has enough pirates, you're probably playing cards you're going to Shadow Step. I'm not saying it's not still a prohibitive restriction, but 8 pirates in Rogue is not 8 pirates in Warrior. It's a little bit less than that, probably like 6.5.
Sure.
You know, when you're thinking it's because is Tenwu still in Standard?
Nope.
No, he's gone. Okay,
There.
so it's just Shadow Step, assuming that stays around, and Scabs, big hero Scabs.
If we have to play hero Scabs to bounce pirates to play this to activate more pirates, then like I'm gonna go ahead and say that we should pick a different strategy.
I'm just saying this is how we thought about the Caverns Below at first. And
Caverns Below cost 1 and required half as many minions. Yeah, I am less convinced about this one.
I'm
However,
just being optimistic.
It's because this is a priest card in rogue clothing. I understand. So
Yes.
something I do want to play. Edelweiss, tell us about the Radiance of Ajara.
So this is a very exciting, very weird utility card, support card. We got a 3-mana 3/4 elemental, and it's in Shaman. It says fire spell damage +2. Your nature spells cost 1. Or sorry, not cost 1. Cost 1 less. And after you cast a frost spell, gain 3 armor. They're really pushing a multicaster shaman, honestly. I mean, it's spell school shaman, but multicaster's easier to say. And you get the point. I mean, I've been thinking about how burn shaman will change with rotation. And on the one hand, we're losing some pretty important things like Lightning Bloom, like the Studies, which was the arcane spell. But even at the elementals, in terms of fire, frost, nature, you can get a lot of value out of the spell schools right now. And I'm going to talk about another card later that goes in with this deck. But I'm really interested to play this kind of very shaman-y feeling shaman, right? You're really taking control of the elements and you know, using them to power up. I don't know. This card seems super sweet, and I think it's just good, like solid most of the time. I don't imagine you're going to be throwing this down to kill people with a bunch of fire spells all that often, but it'll happen once or twice.
Yep.
I mean, I think that the issue with it is that, like, assuming we don't get something coming back in core, the fire spells we're gonna have in standard are Perpetual Flame, Don't Stand in the Fire, and Scalding Geyser, which is a new card that's 1 mana, deal 2 damage, and dredge. That's it. End of list. Right? Like, we could see more. Like, there's still more cards to be revealed. I'm sure we'll get another fire spell. But we're going to need enough fire spells to justify it. But then again, this is going to be in standard for 2 years. If this is clearly being, like, it's a harbinger of more fire spells to come. So it may not be good now. Right? Like, in the set that it's released, it may not be good enough, but it's one of those cards that could get better as things go on.
I really love how spell schools help to finally give Shaman a really clear identity beyond credit card debt as a mechanic, which Overload was just like, buy something that you don't really need right now and then pay for it later in a really major way. And Radiance of Ajara shows the exact kind of jack of all trades, master of the elements space that was being left on the table that they're really able to explore now with Spell School. So I'm really grateful for that. And the card is just kind of cool. It just makes it feel like you get to play Captain Planet Shaman, which is exactly where we want to be, of just you get to play all these different elements, and when our powers combine, it's a lot better than Wind Shear Stormcaller putting all the totems together, you know? Because that was what we did before to represent the elements, is we tried to summon all 4 different totems and then play a 5/5, and that wasn't good enough. But this feels like you're just going to throw it into a lot of the Shaman decks that are already leaning into multicaster, and I don't know if it'll look like Current Burn Shaman or something along those lines, but I want to play with this and see exactly what it does.
Yeah, and I much prefer this incentive to run a bunch of spell schools than like the Mage Quest. Like, much prefer.
This is incremental value. Of course you like this. Of course you do.
Of course. I mean, it's the way the fire spells are looking right now. This is a control card, so I like it a lot. But I'm sure that they're going to print more. They're going to print more fire stuff.
Speaking of incremental value, Steve, tell us about Lady Ashvane.
So, Lady Ashvane. Oh, I was covering up the link on my thing. So, Lady Ashvane is a 5 mana 5/5. Battle Cry, give all weapons in your hand, deck, and battlefield +1/+1. So, once upon a time, we had a card in, was it Mean Streets of Gadgetzan? Hobart Grapple Hammer?
Yes.
Which was a 2 mana 2/2, give all weapons in your hand and deck +1/+0. This at least has the Captain Greenskin effect of buffing the weapon that you have equipped if you have one, and it's giving everything durability. The problem with Hobart was that there's only so many weapons that you want to run in a deck. So we'll have to see if this is the case for this. If we're running either a couple of weapons that we super care about, or we're running a bunch of weapons, this can be good. But the problem is just like, how many weapons do you need to run in order to get use out of this? Because once you cross a line, all you're drawing are weapons that you can't equip because they'll break your other weapon. So there's really a fine line of how you build to take advantage of something like this. And it's but if it's just like a Captain Greenskin and that happens to buff the rest of the weapons in your deck, maybe that's fine. Maybe it's fine if it just affects what you already have in your hand. You're muted, Nettle.
One of the bigger things against this is that, unlike Captain Greenskin, it is not a pirate.
Yeah.
And although it buffs the durability as well as the attack, unlike Hobart, which I believe was just the attack,
It was.
it does buff in play, which I think Hobart did not.
It did not. Hobart was only hand and deck. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's fair to say
that might work.
It's fair to say this card is substantially better than Hobart Grapplehammer. However,
Which is a
that
low
bar
bar.
is not particularly high.
Yeah.
That's bad, because Hobart Grapplehammer was an insta-dust. Or at least some people tried it for about 2 hours, and it's like, wow, this card sucks. I share the concern about weapon density being problematic, but if you hit with this, and you've got like 3-4 weapons in your deck, you get the tradable hammer. That's if you've got 2 of those in your deck by themselves, and you trade one of them one time, that's 30 damage. That's 6 times 4 for the first one, and it's 36 damage. It's 6 times 2 for the second one. If you trade one of them one time, and those are the only weapons in your deck, that's 36. It's not nothing. This would end up giving you what on just a regular hammer you get an extra 6 plus an extra 2. Yeah, you get an extra 7 damage out of it just on one hammer one time, and it scales with durability. I don't know if we're building a Bomb Warrior or a Soul Demon Hunter equivalent here, but you're putting a lot of damage into the world if your game goes long and you plan on using the weapon here, and turn 4 Outrider's Axe into this would be pretty demoralizing to face. So,
Yeah.
I can totally see this in both a Controlling Warrior deck, thank goodness Bulwark is rotating, my goodness, and Corsair Cache as well, but also just some kind of like mid-rangey thing that wants to play Sour Fang on 7 or whatever. Or you can play this after you play Rakara Hero, and then you get an extra bonk. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm picturing something with double axe and then maybe a one of the tradable weapon. That's probably where I would land in terms of density.
Yeah. I think that's enough reason to justify playing this, and then, the turn you played, it's only okay, right? If you have the weapon equipped. If you don't, it's kind of bad. But if you're expecting the game to go longer and you're expecting your weapons to do some work over time, this is the kind of thing that you need for that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we also may just see like a weapon that will make you want to run this, right? Like a lot of the weapons are rotating. Like, Whetstone Hatchet, I believe, is going. Ringmaster's Baton, nobody's going to miss it, but Bulwark and Reaper's Scythe are also going. So we're going to have left is Outrider's Axe, Gorahowl, War Axe, and is Spiked Wheel. That's going
rotating,
too.
and that doesn't make me want to play anything. Doesn't make me want to play Warrior. So the important ones that we're keeping are Outrider's Axe and the hammer, the tradable hammer.
Yeah, and the hammer is the other one. Yeah, so I mean, we may get another weapon that may make this a little bit more appealing, but or they may rotate something back in, from core that'll, maybe they bring back the 2/2 that were ones or something. But I guess you don't want durability on that. Yeah.
Hatchet is actually staying.
Hatchet is staying? Really? Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Dead Mines, I think. Maybe not, but
I think it's Barrens, but I don't know.
It said Barrens when I clicked on it.
Wailing Caverns.
Or, sorry, Caverns. Right, Caverns was the... When I said Dead Mines, I meant Barrens mini set, yeah.
Yeah, the website doesn't differentiate between the mini set and the regular set cards once they're in the wild.
All right, we got one more legendary to talk about, and we're each going to touch on a couple cards of our own. Of course, we thought that going into the section with 75 minutes left would get us in under the 2-hour mark. That's not going to happen, so... The last one, Queen Ajara. Edelweiss, talk us through Queen Ajara.
So, going back to the whole will Naga work or not. Queen Ajara is a 5-mana 5/5 battle cry. If you've cast 3 spells while holding this, choose an ancient relic. And the ancient relics are okay. I believe there's only 3 of them. So
4.
There's 4? Okay, so it's not a guaranteed pool. This, to me, kind of feels like a watered-down Kazakhstan, but I'll read them out here. We've got Ring of Tides. After you cast a spell, this becomes a copy of it that costs 1. You've got Zalatath, which is a 2-mana 0/5 weapon. After you cast a spell, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero and lose 1 durability, so 10 damage overall. 3-mana Horn of the Ancients. Add a random colossal minion to your hand, and it costs 1. So for 4 mana, just play a colossal minion. Pretty big tempo swing. And then Tidestone of Golganeth. 1 mana, shuffle 5 random spells into your deck, set their cost to 1, and then draw 2 cards. So they're all very powerful effects. They're not game-winning effects. They're just high, value or tempo or damage in one way or another.
Well, a couple points of clarity, by the way. I do believe you see all 4. I think every time you get to pick from the 4.
Oh, really? Okay.
Kind of.
All right.
So
Cool.
this is, I think, a neutral high spare and togwaggle, basically, and you always get the 4 choices there. It is also worth noting, Ring of Tides says after you cast a spell, this becomes a copy of it that costs 1. It does not keep transforming as currently written, unless it's implemented differently from how it's written. You may be thinking of something like Phlebidinous Floop or the Death Knight Valera hero card. Those say each time or whenever then it transforms. This says after you cast a spell, it becomes a copy of it. It doesn't retain this text, so it should just be double up that spell and then it stays static in your hand after it transforms.
Oh, I think I actually like that better because that lets you pace it however you want.
Assuming that you don't need to cast a spell that's not the spell you want to cast before that, which sometimes does happen.
It depends. I think you can't have a particular spell you want to cast twice in this case, right? If you need to play something twice, if you need to play something earlier, it's probably a board clear. And if you've been forced to play a board clear, you probably won't mind having another one. Yeah. This seems like if you can get it activated pretty easily, it's a nice value card and will flexibly give you a threat. But barring getting a turn 6 Colossus that's pretty swingy, and again, the Colossi we've said are they're good, but for the most part, not just win you the game on the spot good.
For 1 mana, they're all pretty good, though. Like, I mean, if you're paying full price for a lot of them, like, do I care if if I'm getting 3 pirates for 1 mana a piece? Like, I don't care if that's underwhelming. If that cost me 1 as opposed to 7, right?
It costs you 9, basically, right? Because you're playing the Ajara, then the following turn you play the Colossal thing, get whatever one. It's not Discover, just get a random one. Then you pay it. A lot of these have a base cost of 6 anyways, so it's not faster. It's just you get to curve into it, and it might not be in your class.
Well, you get to do that plus other things on the turn that you play it, right? Like, that's the difference.
One other thing.
You have 2 mana left.
Well, you don't necessarily... You might not play it that turn, right?
I guess not.
You might play it the following turn with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, 1 mana Colossal Minion probably better than full cost. Like, approximately, it's cheaper. That is true. The comparison that I'm making here is that this is probably a Lich King, where it's pretty good in some classes. It will be overplayed because it's the marquee flavor legendary of the set, and it's a neutral. And it will be decent, but I don't see too many roles being really game-winning. I do think Xalatath is a very large amount of damage for a very small amount of mana overall, the weapon. Like, maybe that belongs in Quest Hunter. Maybe this is the Naga we're playing in Quest Hunter.
Yeah.
Because it kind of doubles your hero power 5 times, and we're very interested in more damage for not a lot of mana. So maybe that's where we end up. And otherwise, I'm not really sure where we're going with this. It's kind of generic, flexible value along with the flavor. So... it's cool, but none of these affect the board. None of these spells, none of these payoffs kill anything. That's also very different.
Though, I mean, keep in mind, we're going into a 4-set meta, right? We play Mankrik in every deck the last time we had a 4-set meta, right? So, like, these aren't, like, earth-shattering, but these are probably good enough for it to see play in a lot of decks in a 4-set meta where there's a decent density of spells. At least for the first, like, couple of weeks, right? Because, like, what else are we doing? So I think that this is the appropriate level of power for a 4-set meta, like, marquee neutral legendary.
Yeah. Even if this isn't good enough, I expect to see play anyway. Because
it's like if we want to make yet another Ungoro comparison, how about Elise from that set, right? Where you shuffle, you played the 5/5, you shuffled the pack into your deck, and that was good enough to be in like a lot of decks in that set. And then we got more cards in it, and it filtered its way out. This is probably the same thing.
That did have the advantage of you could always just play it on 5 if you had it.
Yeah.
I expect
I would
this
imagine
one.
the deck that plays this is probably going to be able to just tempo it on 5 a lot of the time.
Yeah, perhaps.
Unless you draw it on turn 5 and then it's dead.
Well, yeah, then it would be sad. Yes.
All right. Time for each of us to pick a couple cards and talk about. I would like to pick a card, talk about a card that is not controversial even a little bit. Let's talk about Aquatic Form. So Aquatic Form is a druid spell, 0 mana. Dredge. If you have the mana to play the card this turn, draw it. I lied a little bit. This is very controversial. People are scared of druid getting a 0 mana card that can theoretically draw. So this card's good. Because 0 mana potentially draw a card. It's not as broken as you might think it is, listener, but it's not bad. I think it is in the ballpark as Nature Studies, a little bit worse. Nature Studies obviously a powerful card. The thing about Aquatic Form... Alright, so first let's do a thought exercise. If you remove the conditionality from the draw, if it is 0 mana Dredge, draw the card. That's tracking for 0. We play that card every single deck in Hearthstone history. However, when do you play this? Do you keep this in your opener? When does it whiff? What are you looking for? Current Ramp Druid has a pretty decent density of low mana spells. But you need to hit because whiffing is a nightmare. 0 mana, put a card on top of my deck is not good enough for Arena Hearthstone, let alone Constructed Hearthstone. Does 0 mana do nothing? Could have just drawn it anyways, could have drawn something else. I have seen people say, well, you just put Guff on top of your deck. I understand Guff is powerful, and maybe you will win those games. That is not what you want to do here. You want to draw a card. And current Druid is losing a lot of low mana stuff. Lightning Bloom, Nature Studies, Resizing Pouch, etc., etc., etc. All the Eclipses, Guess the Weight. Basically all the good low mana cards, except for Moonlit Guidance, which sticks around. So when do you get to play this is the question of how relevant it is. And do you want 0 mana tracking later in the game? I think you do. In aggressive Druids, especially now they're losing Arbor up, so I hope they still exist, you probably can play this on turn 2 and probably pretty reliably hit something. Can you hit what you want every time? Probably not. On turn 3, probably close. On turn 4, definitely. That's a pretty good spot to be in. I think this would be an aggressive Druid right now. Might be in Beast Druid the issue is that it doesn't see the reduced cost on Frostsaber Matriarch or an Umbral Owl, so you have to wait till 7 if you want to hit those specifically. In a aggro Druid, the Razormane Battleguard deck, this card's a slam dunk. We run this card. It's really, really great. Just makes your deck smaller, makes it easier to find what you want. If you absolutely need to, you can Hail Mary on turn 1 for a Trog, but you shouldn't do that. It's a bad idea. In slower Druids, we have to see where they're going. You really like this late game because you get to pick what you want, but you're probably not playing it before turn 4 to turn 5. And even if you play it on turn 4, you have to choose what it gives you that will allow you to draw the card. So it's really an illusion of choice. It cycles into a card that you can play this turn, but it's closer to a 0 mana pouch than anything else on that turn, except you know the hits are going to be decent. Still a pretty good spot to be in, but you might see a card that you really hope that you get to draw, and you don't get to pick it. And that also means that if you dredge on turn 4 and see Guff, you know that you're not drawing him unless you dredge again, because he's on the bottom of your deck. And that might have been true the whole time, but it'll feel bad when you see him there, even though you never had any control of that outcome.
So, two things. One, point of order, Umbral Owl is rotating. So we're not going to play that in Beast Druid.
Right,
yeah.
Which is why I wouldn't go in current Beast Druid, and it might go in future Beast Druid. The Frostsaber Matriarch part still applies.
Yes. I think the reason a lot of people freaked out when they saw this card is because it was revealed at the same time as Ajaran Gardens, which is 1 mana, give all minions in your hand +1/+1, put a Sunken Gardens in the bottom of your deck, which is also a 1 mana spell that gives all minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield +1/+1. So they looked at these two cards together and said, this is build your own Kaliseth, and Prince Kaliseth is scary, and you can put 2 copies of this in your deck. And I think that's why the internet collectively freaked out when they saw that card. I think it's going to happen, right? But I don't know that that's going to happen as often as just like slamming Kaliseth on 2. And then you're spending 2 cards for the privilege of doing that. Is that going to be? It could be terrifying. I don't know, but I mean, we've seen Kaliseth be Kaliseth, but and especially in an aggressive Druid, that may be what you need to be competitive without Arbor up. You're kind of pre-arboring up. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to happen enough for that to be that spooky.
Yeah, I would consider this a key support card. I think it's just going to increase the consistency of Druid decks pretty substantially, which is a little scary alongside things like Capture Coldtooth Mine and the Moonlit Guidance. Could actually be some really funny scenarios if you like aquatic form for a Moonlit Guidance and then keep going, or Moonlit Guidance for an aquatic form. And if you've really got a lot of mana, you can do some very goofy things.
Guidance
But,
for form is actually awesome, isn't it?
yeah.
'Cause, like,
oh yeah. it's
Even if you're
nuts.
dredging there, you keep the second copy. That's actually quite good.
Yeah. And you know what your next draw is going to be at that point, which you might be if you're digging at that point anyway. You might just be digging hard.
So I think this card is good, but just not broken, but I think it will see play, and there are, again, future worlds where it could just be along for the ride with something else that's broken. 0 mana, potentially dry, is powerful.
Yep.
All right, Edel. Got another Shaman card that you alluded to earlier. Tell us about Coral Keeper.
Yeah, so going with that multicaster shaman, Coral Keeper is it's just Hunter Spellstone. That's what this card is. It says upgrade when you play a spell from that has a spell school, and it caps out at summons 3, which means that you're paying 5 mana for a 3/4 and 3 3/3s, and that's pretty good. The Hunter Spellstone was pretty good, and you had to play secrets to upgrade that. This, you just sort of play Wind Chill and the new fire spell that deals 2 damage and any number of nature spells. It's going to be pretty easy to get the conditions for Coral Keeper, and it's 12-13 in stats. That seems all right to me.
Yeah. It's
Even
actually
with
better than
just-
Spellstone.
Yeah, because the base 3/4.
Well, also because you had to play the secrets while it was in your hand
Right?
to upgrade it.
Yeah.
Right? Like this comes as long as you play the spell schools before you draw this, you can just slam this down and it's going to summon for whatever you've already played. It's cast this game not while you're holding this.
Right.
Seems a little Jandisy. Little Barov-esque. This is just going to be a lot of stuff quickly. Seems powerful.
Kind of like the Great Barov Reef.
Nope. Absolutely not.
No. Okay.
No.
Fair enough.
Ugh. Talk about your card. Just go.
So I think this is probably the most misinterpreted card of the set so far, and that's a pretty high bar because we've had some that are kind of ambiguous. Whirlpool is a 9 mana nature spell for priest. I just now noticed it was a nature spell, by the way, which is actually pretty cool. Destroy all minions and all copies of them wherever they are. So I guess we need to start by saying this does not mean remove all minions from the rest of the game. That's not what this means. You are removing the minions on board, and then anything you've destroyed on board, you are then destroying all copies of them. And I believe that includes any minions of yours that are on the board as well. So you do have to be a little bit careful when you're playing this that you don't remove a minion that you need to draw the other copy of, because it will do that. And I honestly think that fatigue considerations aside, which could be significant because again we're going to a 4-set meta, and fatigue might be a more relevant win condition than it is later on. Other than fatigue considerations, I don't think the second part of the card text really matters super much. I mean, we've had instances where we would have liked to have this, like when Kronk's Togwaggle scheme was a thing. I would have loved to have this card because I lost a lot of games to rogues doing that and was extremely salty afterwards. But I mean, as long as we're not getting something that, I mean, there's also like the Swarming Piranha that like summons 3 copies of itself, or there's a card that summons like 3 Swarming Piranha and they all get attacked for each other Swarming Piranha you played, and there's stuff like that. But I mean, just having like an actual board wipe, which as powerful as Soul Mirror and Hysteria are, they're not consistently just wipe the board. And it's not Plague of Death, but that's fine. It's still a 9-mana board clear for Priest. And Priest is losing a lot of good clears. So having like an oh crap button that you can press later in the game is useful.
This is a
excited.
9-mana Priest Twisting Nether. The second sentence is largely irrelevant, but Priest having access to a Twisting Nether is good for Priest.
Yep.
I'm excited just to see this animation, because I will be disappointed if this isn't the best animation in the set.
Yeah. I mean, Plague of Death was pretty cool, and I'm expecting it's at least as good as Plague of Death's animation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's it is unexciting in execution because that second sentence is really not going to matter very much, but Priest plays differently when it has access to global destroy tools than when it doesn't. And Soul Mirror is a fantastic card, but was not a consistent global destroy tool. And this just says the stuff that's in play isn't in play anymore. So, seems good.
Yeah. And it's a Priest card that messes with Shadow Step, which makes me very happy.
We just have to Shadow Step the thing that you want to kill, and then it's in my hand and it's not in play. And
Don't ruin my dreams, Hat. Just let me have this one for a minute.
And the other card you want to talk about, Steve, is a Demon Hunter card, which I think is a first for us here in the show, of you wanting to talk about a Demon Hunter card. But I looked at the card and then I understand why, because it reminded me of a different card we had many years ago.
Yeah, so Coil Scar Commander is a 6-mana 2/6 Naga for Demon Hunter with Taunt that says Battle Cry, if you cast 3 spells while holding this, summon 2 copies. So this is basically Fishy Spreading Plague. And that's, it's actually, the bodies are better than Spreading Plague, because the Spreading Plague bodies were 1/5, and these are 2/6s. And I've already established that I know when numbers are bigger than other numbers on this episode. So that's a lot of taunts to slow someone. 6 mana, but the deck that's going to play this is probably going to have a bunch of spells to play.
18 health. 18.
Yes.
That's
It's
too
a lot.
much. That's too much. I don't want to deal with that either.
Yeah, and you're playing a bunch of spells probably because you're running the legendary in your deck, right?
Yes.
So you got a lot of cheap spells already, so it's not going to be too hard as long as you don't top deck this. If you, again, like all the rest of the Naga, except for the Hunter, Spellstone, and Shaman, like you're going to be sad if you top deck it. But other than that, even in Demon Hunter, you draw enough cards, you probably will figure out a way to deal with it.
Yeah. This card just scares me so much for any aggro decks. Immolation Aura is going away. There's at least that.
It is.
But
Well, also, like, weapon decks really don't want to deal with this either. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
It's just annoying. And the Demon Hunter deck that is most likely to have a high density of spells is Quest Demon Hunter, which has a guaranteed spell in the opener with the quest. 50% of the time it gets the coin, too. Just need one more. So we'll see what Quest Demon Hunter looks like. But if this comes down for 5 mana, that's devastating. And even then, the Demon Hunters that we've seen, if they want to play a bunch of spells, it is not hard for them to do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're the class that has the best time trying to get these spell-heavy Naga Synergies to work.
Yeah. And their spells often get them more spells.
Yep. No Twin Slice. They won't bring it back. Don't worry. Card's crazy. All right. Edelweiss, you have a card that makes engineers annoyed. Memnarch, if you're still in the chat, speak now, forever hold your peace.
yeah, so I picked this card not because of its name, which is incorrect, but because of its effect, which is scan the bottom 5 cards of your deck, draw any mechs found this way, then shuffle your deck. So, all right, a few things. One, this costs 2 mana. If you are playing a very mech-dense paladin that is potentially really high value, right? If you hit 3 things, even 2 things, you're going to be happy with that. And the potential to just like draw 5. Probably not going to happen, but it's going to happen sometimes, and it's going to be absurd. The other thing is it is scan the bottom. And if you're scanning the bottom, that goes well if there's going to be, we haven't seen any yet, but if there's a sunken mech card in Paladin, then you're immediately pulling whatever you put on the bottom of your deck. And also, it shuffles your deck. So even if you're playing a sunken card that isn't a mech, but is something else, you take the mechs and you shuffle your deck, and the thing that was previously sunken on the bottom is now somewhere in your deck. Maybe you pick it up earlier. That's a little more fringe in terms of the use, but I just think that everything about this card, except for the fact that it should be sonar instead of radar, is pretty awesome.
It's
Yeah.
If this consistently hits 2 to 3 minions, it's insane. It's just it's a deck building challenge like Crystology was. But I don't know. I expect this card to see a lot of play. This is one of the bigger builder rounds we've seen in the set. Like, it just makes you want to fill your deck with mechs and then have 2 mana Secret Passage. Except you don't put the cards back. You just keep them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just going to be a matter of, like, what mechs does Paladin get, but I have to imagine Paladin's going to get more mechs that are playable, because the ones that we have right now are meh, but I'm sure that's going to change. Even if we don't get Shielded Minibot, I'm sure we're going to get some mechs that are going to make this appealing. And I mean, yeah, 2 mana draw 2 is fine. 2 mana draw 3 is great. 2 mana draw 4, more than that is disgusting.
Yep. All right. Last card we're going to talk about today in our 2.5 hour short episode. Naga Giant. 20 mana, neutral, 8/8 epic. It's a Naga. Costs 1 less for each mana you've spent on spells this game. Okay. So they had a few cards that cost less for the amount of mana you have spent instead of the number of spells you have played. I think this is smart, because you don't reward people for playing free spells, you reward them for playing expensive spells, which means they have to actually pay mana for their cards for this to be good. And if people are actually paying mana for their cards to get their free cards, that is much healthier than when people pay no mana to have no mana cards. Like Arcane Giant, which was a 0 mana 8/8 after a deck played a bunch of 0 mana spells. This says you get a 0 mana 8/8 after you pay your dues, and you build your own giant by playing a lot of spells. I'm down. I'm about it. And I envision there will be use cases for this, but I'm not immediately sure what they are, though. You could build a big spell-heavy druid deck which already wants to ramp and play scale. But also the most obvious thing to me right now is Big Holy Paladin with the 7 mana Holy card that makes a 1/2 taunt, a 2/4 taunt, and a 4/8 taunt. That's 7 already. You're probably playing a bunch of other Holy spells, and you have a bunch of cards that draw you Holy spells and whatever. And if the first thought of the card is, this might be a free 8/8 and Holy Paladin, I think we're probably doing okay, as opposed to yet another Rogue card, or some kind of Quest Demon Hunter payoff. I think that we have to work pretty hard to make this cheap. But I'm curious to see who breaks this first, because someone's going to break this. And I don't know who it is, and I don't know how they're going to do it, but I know it's going to happen. But I think it's a pretty clever reimagining of cost reduction mechanics.
Yeah, it's focused on that swing turn aspect rather than the try and get this out super fast. I mean, the earliest you could get it out for 0 mana would be turn 6. And that's if you're playing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in terms of spells each turn. So, or I guess you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then play it for 5 mana on turn 6. But yeah, it should be interesting to see if that's good enough. I think it will be, because, I mean, we've seen how those swing turns can be powerful in Handlock because sometimes they get it down super early, but sometimes they get it later in the game and it's just a swing turn, and that's still really good. You can still win games that way. So yeah, definitely happy to know that this cannot come down too early. There's no way to get around that.
I mean, this is basically strongman without taunt, right? I mean, that's basically what we're dealing with right now. And you probably see it in a lot of the places where strongman was played. So like Druid will probably play this. I mean, Druid's playing Scale of Onyxia almost certainly in almost any deck, possibly regardless of archetype. It's probably playing Scale of Onyxia and force that meta.
And it has that new card that draws you 3 cards for 7 that also that makes you a taunt equal to the size of your hand.
Yeah. So those are the big. I was just like search for spells that are bigger than 7. There's not a whole lot that are left. I mean, Priest might run it just because we've got, Whirlpool as a card. But again, so that kind of lets you remove and then drop a minion afterward, which is kind of the dream. But you know what you could do, Hat? Smokescreen Rogue.
No, I don't.
It's happening.
No, is
one
it?
of the few card draw spells left in Rogue after
it costs 8. It's
half...
perfect. This is what it was printed for. This.
I don't. I admire your optimism, and also I question the ulterior motive of making other people play Smokescreen on ladder so you can win more when you face them. Because while it's technically true, I can play an unrelated 8/8 in my deck with one large spell that hopes to hit not this minion. I can also, do anything else in the client. I think I'd win more standard games with a Mercs party than with Smokescreen Rogue Naga Giant.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, what's the fun in that?
It would be fun to play Mercs in standard.
Yeah, you also could say you won with Smokescreen, and then you get Iron to retweet you, and you're all set.
There are a lot of assumptions about what will happen if I play Smokescreen Rogue with this in it. If you think that's the outcome that's going to happen, I don't think that the outcome is going to be. I am all sunshine
and rainbows today. I am bringing you optimism and joy, and you're just smacking it away. I don't know. I don't know. I
appreciate what you're trying to do here. But I think that I'm going to explore some other options first before heading down the giant Smokescreen Rogue deck. Maybe in a listener series. Maybe.
I mean, maybe this is the new Burst Druid. Who knows?
So, we have many folks to like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com. You can find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doge DK, Proby1, Crush Cap, Squatch, David P, Snowpack, Lucky Faded Black, Wild Away, Turner Wizard, and Jeremy T. Thank you so much to the people who subscribed during the show. We've got Tito Santana and Dankus Dad. And also, got some coin concedes. Edelweiss, you get the first one here. I like yours.
So, of course, I would like to coin concede to Alkali Lake and the rest of the Hearthstone community team for giving me another opportunity with the live stream. It's so perfect. I love it because I love theory crafting, and of course, I'm always anxious to get access to the new cards. So, it's really appreciate having the chance to do that.
How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I just want to glom onto that, and words are not happening. Just because, in general, a lot of the choices that have been made for people to feature this time around. I mean, it's going back to the last set too, but it's in particular this set. It's been, it feels like it wasn't that long ago that we had that big, kerfuffle with the Battlegrounds tournament where they invited no women, and really, Alkali's made such an impact in a relatively short time of just being able to feature such a variety of people who are making contributions to the Hearthstone community, and it's really been a huge a huge improvement, I think, and it helps a lot of creators, like big and small, get featured. So I think she's doing a fantastic job, and I think we're pretty lucky to have her in that position. Also want to coin concede to Deck Tech because he just got converted to a full-time employee. He tweeted very recently, and it's good having him there too. And I know that he worked super hard for that, and I'm really glad to see him successful there too. And he's also been really great in terms of the communication coming out of the team. It's definitely improved a lot with him in that role, and it's good that that's being recognized by Blizzard, and he's been made a more permanent addition to the team. And I also want to coin concede to Sway because she just got partner on Twitch, and Sway is awesome. She's a Battleground streamer. If you haven't watched her, Sway_BAE. You should go follow her on Twitch. But she's been working incredibly hard over the last few months, and just puts everything into her streams, and even streaming at times when other people would have decided to take a break, but she's been really powering through and working super hard. And it's great to see hard work like that getting rewarded. And I couldn't think of somebody that I'd be happier to see rewarded that way. Also our THL teammate on Hat and Ice team, and she's also she's like became the MVP and on our team, just like kind of becoming like a monster in the 5 slot the last few weeks of the season. So
I think she won 6 weeks in a row this season. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see, like, all of a sudden the switch flipped and she was just like taking on all comers.
Yep. It's there's still more work to do here, but I really like the progress that's been made in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
All right, coin concedes. Kresh, thank you very much for the Twitch Prime during the outro there. Tito Santana, thank you so much for being flexible with our coaching sessions and just always being an ardent supporter of all the podcasts out there. And had a really fun time with Lulu Mark 1, our coaching session today, playing some Quest Hunter on stream. There was a cool game at the end there where we end up losing, and there are so many different branching paths. I got to go back and look at the replay there, but we had a lot of fun just, for the most part winning with Quest Hunter. It's still a fun deck, and enjoying our time in pre-rotation standard. Just a good time. I think that's gonna do it for our show this week. So, keep calm. I don't have anything planned for this. I don't have anything planned for the outro. What are we doing? What are we doing for the outro? I'll take suggestions. Nobody knows?
Reds before you draw? I don't know.
That works.
I mean, we're not there yet.
No. Chat, any suggestions? I don't have an outro line. I usually think of one, but I don't have one. There we go. Matt Arms got it.
How about watch the trailer again?
Matt's got it. Keep calm and stay hydrated. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All right, stopping recording.
Yeah, we'll do a short show. Steve's tired. 2.5 hours. No big deal.
Wait. I'm sorry. We said this is going to be short. Who said it was going to be short?
I think we thought it was going to be short. I don't know why we think that. We think that every week because there's like, there's not that much to talk about.
Because we're not smart people. Because we're not smart.
If we're doing every legendary, there was not a chance in hell. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I got to make a new plan for Vicious Syndicate that I'm recording later tonight of just like,
oh my god,
maybe we just do class highlights. Maybe we just do a picture of each class as opposed to trying to do card by card. Because the initial plan was we'll just do every card reveal since last week quick, and I'm like, Zach, it's been 50 cards. It's not quick. It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna figure.
I mean, we're getting close to off-curve card review at this point. So
it's a weird season because they haven't done a drip feed like this in a while.
No, they haven't. So so you kind of get this false sense of security, right? Where it's like, oh, they're not showing. There's still a whole bunch of cards. Like, this isn't that bad. We can probably handle a lot of these. And like, oh god, what did we do?
Yeah, in some respects, like when we got the dump in a couple of weeks, I think we just did the okay, everyone has 5 cards, right?
Yeah.
Because we knew it was way too much. But here we kind of tried to split the difference, and it did not.
Yeah,
work
like
out.
when they just said screw it,
It's
here are all
not-
the cards in Stormwind or whatever, like that's yeah.
It's-
That was just made it like you can't possibly, unless you're me and you're crazy. So
2.5 hours is not also an unreasonable length by new card
oh, I know.
standards. But
I've given you a lot of crap about the length of episodes compared to my card reviews. Yes.
but like this is just it's how it goes pretty much every time. But also it just the false insecurity of like, oh, they're just doing a few cards every week, but it was a ton.
Yeah.
I really wonder what the purpose is of delaying core set, but I guess we'll find out soon ish.
Yeah, I don't love it just because I mean I guess it kind of forces you to evaluate the cards on their merits as opposed to this is what you're going to play in a deck, but also like
But that's
it's so hard to put the pieces together without
I
We
don't
knowing
like
what the
being
deck's gonna be.
forced to evaluate without
context
context.
no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
It's like everything's just like, well, if they do this or if they don't do that, then this will happen. But it's like there's just so many ifs that it's impossible to figure that out.
And we don't even know what their general plan is for how many cards they're going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it could be it could be 50 cards. It could be 200. We don't know. But,
Well,
and
thanks
we
for
don't know
tuning
what
in,
their
everybody.
policy is.
We're
Yeah.
going to bring the stream down now. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.